Welcome, traveler. You've stumbled upon a journey, long, gentle, and winding through the forgotten corners of the medieval world. Tonight, we step into the muddy shoes of the medieval peasant, a life of struggle, hardship, and quiet resilience. This isn't a tale of kings or castles, but of the countless souls who toiled in the fields, faced hunger, illness, and war, and survived day by day. As the flicker of candlelight settles and the weight of the day lifts from your shoulders, let this story become your companion into rest. There's no need to stay awake. Just breathe deep, get comfortable, and let the soft rhythm of history carry you. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe, like the video if it helps you drift off, and leave a comment telling us what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. We'd love to know where in the world our little village of listeners has grown. Now, close your eyes if you like, and let's begin. Imagine waking up before the sun, that early hour when the world is still wrapped in darkness. There's no gentle sound of an alarm to ease you into the day. No comfortable mattress. You open your eyes to the cold, hard reality of your situation. You're lying on a thin, itchy straw mattress, which barely cushions the cold stone or wooden floor beneath you. You can feel the dampness seeping up from the earth, a reminder that your shelter is fragile and your warmth is fleeting. The fire has long since burned out, leaving only the faint smell of charred wood lingering in the air. Your blanket is a tattered remnant from better days, and it offers little protection from the cold. It's not thick enough to ward off the bite of the chilly air that fills the hut. The only light in the room is from the faint, dying glow of the embers from the hearth, casting long shadows across the room. The others in your hut, whether it's family or livestock, are still asleep, but you know there's no time to wait for them to stir. The day's work has already begun, and you've got a long list of tasks to do. The first thing you hear is the sound of the wind, howling outside your walls. There's no insulation, no glass windows, just crude wooden shutters, or cloth tied up to keep the cold from rushing in. The wind is a constant companion in your life, and its howl cuts through you, reminding you that you are at the mercy of nature. It feels like the earth itself is pressing down on you, trying to crush you under the weight of its demands. You roll over and attempt to push yourself up, but your body protests. Your back aches from the uncomfortable sleeping position you were forced to adopt last night. Your joints stiff from the cold. You take a deep breath and try to muster the strength to stand. But there's no luxury of lying in bed and stretching. This is survival, and the world outside doesn't stop just because you're tired. You can hear the first sounds of life outside the hut, the early morning crows of a rooster, the rustling of the animals, chickens, goats, perhaps a cow beginning to stir. The village is waking up, and you have to be a part of it. You slip out of bed, your bare feet hitting the icy floor, the cold stone pressing into the soles of your feet. If you're lucky, you have some worn shoes, but even then, the thick mud from last night's rain or the snow from the day before makes walking a treacherous experience. You're not alone in your discomfort. The others in the hut are beginning to stir, but there's no moment of peace. You can hear your family members moving around, getting dressed, or in the case of younger children, being dressed by you, preparing for the day ahead. Everyone has their role to play. Your father is likely already working in the field or getting the tools ready for the day. The mother is setting out the meal, which will likely consist of stale bread, perhaps a small portion of cheese, or last night's leftovers. It's not a feast. It's enough to survive. Maybe, but before you can even think about breakfast, your first task awaits. The animals. You trudge outside, into the cold, the wind biting at your face, and the sharp sting of winter air seeping into every part of your clothing. You've got to check on the livestock, feed them, make sure they've survived the night. If you're fortunate enough to have chickens, goats, or maybe a pig or two, then it's your responsibility to care for them. The animals are essential, even if they aren't glamorous. You can't eat without them, and neither can your family. But even this task isn't as simple as it sounds. If it's been snowing, the ground will be slippery, and you'll need to walk cautiously to avoid slipping. If there's mud, you're forced to wade through it, your boots caked in muck. If you're barefoot, the cold ground will press through your feet and numb your toes in mere seconds. And you're not just feeding the animals. You've got to clean their pens too. Scrape away the waste that's piled up over the night, sometimes with nothing more than a shovel and your bare hands. There are no convenient cleaning tools, no broom, no bucket, just your sweat, your hands, and your strength. And the smell, the stench of animals and waste fills the air, thick and pungent, clinging to your clothes and skin. You learn to ignore it, but it never really leaves. The animals are your livelihood, and yet, even they seem to be constantly sick. The harsh conditions, cold, wet, cramped quarters, often lead to diseases which only add to your burden. If your goats catch something, or your chickens stop laying eggs, that's one more problem to fix. One more thing you don't have time for, and there's no one to help you, no neighbors coming by with advice, no assistance from the Lord. You're on your own out here, in the fields, the woods, the muck. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you're sick. You don't get sick days. You have to work. Once the animals are taken care of, you might be able to have a small meal, some bread, maybe a boiled egg, or a piece of cheese. The food you eat is far from hearty. It's a way to get by, but there's no room for luxury in the medieval world. The meal is what fuels you for the rest of the day's labor. It's now time for the next round of chores, taking care of the field, repairing tools, gathering firewood, or heading into the village to trade. The day stretches on, with no time for rest. The sun might set late in the evening, but you won't have the luxury of stopping when the darkness falls. The fire must be tended, the hearth cleaned, and everyone's chores must be finished. Your body aches. Your mind is foggy from exhaustion. And yet, there's no question, no option. You have to push through. By the time the afternoon rolls around, your body is aching in ways you never thought possible. You've already spent hours working under the scorching sun, and yet the work continues. It's only after hours of physical labor that you begin to feel the strain. The muscles in your legs are sore, your arms burn from lifting, and your back is a constant throb of exhaustion. Every movement feels like it's dragging you through thick mud, but there's no time to stop. Your family depends on you. The Lord depends on you. The earth depends on you. No one cares about how tired you are. You just keep moving. Your body becomes a machine. It doesn't matter if your hands blister. It doesn't matter if your back feels like it's on fire. You push through the pain because that's what survival demands. You live in a world where complaining is pointless, where weakness is a sign of failure. You don't stop. You can't afford to stop. It's during this midday break that you realize just how poorly equipped you are for the work. The tools you're using are barely functional, broken, worn out, or simply ineffective for the scale of the task. The hoe you use to dig up weeds has a handle that's so splintered it's a miracle it hasn't snapped in half yet. Your sickle is dull and rusting, making it harder to harvest the crops without wasting time. The plow drags behind your oxen, whose strength is waning as the day drags on. These are the same tools your family has been using for generations, handed down through the years, but they're clearly showing their age. You can't afford to replace them. You can't even afford to have someone fix them properly. That means the same inefficient, broken implements are used season after season. Even if you knew how to make new ones, Where would you find the metal to forge a new sickle? Where would you find the resources to fix a plow? The feudal system doesn't provide you with anything other than your bare existence, and the Lord doesn't care about how much more efficiently you could work if you had the right tools. In this world, repair and maintenance are constant undertakings. Whether it's fixing a broken fence or mending a leaky roof, you're always doing something just to keep things from falling apart. It's an endless loop of repairs and makeshift solutions, and you're never more than a step away from disaster. If the plow breaks and there's no one to fix it, you'll lose precious planting time. If the roof leaks and you can't patch it in time, your family will suffer through the cold and damp. The weight of these worries hangs on you like a stone. Every day, you work is one more day spent struggling with things you shouldn't have to. But this is the life of a medieval peasant, hard, grueling, and inefficient. It's about getting by, not thriving. It's about surviving, despite the odds. By now the morning has passed, but you're far from done. While the sun inches across the sky, marking the hours that slip by like grains of sand, you're already starting to feel the toll the day has taken. You've fed the animals, mucked out their pens, and braved the elements, all with your body sore from the morning's chores. But there's still no time to slow down. Every task, no matter how small, feels like a heavy weight. Your next task, like the ones before, is unforgiving. It's time for the fields, and that means more hard, physical labor. With the weather often unpredictable, there's always a rush to prepare for the planting season, or tend to whatever crops are growing. The land has no mercy. It only gives what it wants when it wants, and it requires constant care. If the soil isn't plowed, the seeds aren't sown properly, or the plants aren't tended to, they won't grow. So, despite your aching back, you pull your tools from the barn, the same ones you've used for years, the ones that seem to wear down with every use. The plow is heavy, awkward to maneuver, and it takes all the strength in your body just to make it move. If you're lucky, you've got an ox or a horse to help. But they too are tired and temperamental, and you have to coax them to pull. You spend hours in the fields, walking behind the plow as the earth is turned over, exposing the dark soil beneath. Every step is a labor, every turn of the wheel, another grueling effort. You'll feel the heat of the sun on your back, and the sweat will pour down your face, but there's no time to stop, no breaks. If you stop to rest, the work piles up, and the crops don't wait. They must be tended to, or everything will be wasted. The weeds begin to take over if you're not vigilant, and once they get a hold, it can take weeks to undo the damage. As you move through the fields, you can see the neighbors working just as hard, but they don't offer you any help. Everyone is in the same boat. They're just trying to survive, just as you are. No one has time for idle chatter. Every pair of hands is needed. You can feel the tension in the air, the pressure to get it right, to do it fast, or else risk the loss of your only source of food. At midday, you might get a brief respite. The sun is high, but there's no shelter to protect you from its oppressive rays. The little food you have is all you've got. Maybe a bit of stale bread, a small wedge of cheese, or whatever scraps you've managed to scrounge together from last night's meal. You'll eat quickly, if you can stomach it, before getting back to work. The time for a full, relaxing lunch doesn't exist here. That's a luxury that noblemen or wealthy merchants might enjoy, but not you. You eat what you can, and you get back to the work that must be done. By the time evening approaches, you can feel the exhaustion in every inch of your body. Your hands are raw and blistered from the constant gripping of tools. Your legs ache from squatting in the fields or walking the endless distance between your hut and the work site. Even your eyes feel tired, the constant exposure to the sun and the dust making it hard to keep them open. But it's not yet time to stop. There's still more to do. As the sun begins to set, You gather the last of the harvest, or finish whatever task you were working on, whether that's repairing fences, gathering firewood, or bringing in the animals. The sky turns pink and gold, the day's light starting to fade. But you can't stop. The work never stops. Even after the sun sets, the world doesn't fall silent. The darkness brings a new set of challenges. It's cold, and the chill creeps into your bones even more quickly after the long hours under the sun. You're inside now, but the warmth from the fire is just enough to make the air bearable, not warm enough to give you the comfort you crave. There's no real privacy in a medieval hut. If you're lucky, you have a corner where you sleep with your family, but the space is cramped and there's little relief from the harshness of the day. At night, you'll be exhausted, but sleep isn't always restful. You'll fall into a heavy sleep, only to wake up in the middle of the night, stiff and sore, your body aching from hours of labor. If it's cold enough, you'll shiver until the fire warms up again, or maybe you'll just lie there, awake, wondering how you're going to do it all over again tomorrow. When you do sleep, your dreams are often interrupted by the sounds of the outside world, the low moan of the wind, the rustling of the animals in the barn, and the occasional loud crack of the thatched roof. If you're lucky, you'll fall back asleep, but there's always a sense of unease hanging over you. After all, in a world like this, you never know what's coming next. And you know tomorrow, you'll have to wake up and do it all over again. And yet, as tired as you are, you can't let the exhaustion overwhelm you. Every day is a fight to survive, a fight to make sure there's food for your family, a fight to make sure that you can continue the work, no matter how worn out you feel. In medieval times, there's no room for weakness. There's no tomorrow when today isn't done. There's no safety net, no social programs to help you if you can't make it. Even when you're sick or injured, you push through. There's no one to rely on but yourself. The people who care for you are likely just as exhausted, just as burdened, just as worn down by the unending struggle to survive. You can't afford to stop. The harvest won't wait. The Lord's taxes won't wait. The land won't wait. You rise again with the sun. The routine starts anew, and every day you're reminded that the work, the struggle, never ends. You will repeat this cycle year after year, the seasons changing, but your life staying the same. You know the land, you know the work, but do you know how to escape it? Do you know how to break the cycle? The truth is, you can't. No one can. Another day breaks, and once again, you're forced to start from scratch. The first thing you notice as you step out of your hut is the cold bite of the morning air, cutting right through your clothes and straight to your bones. There's no time for a warm breakfast. You've got to feed the animals again. Even though you're tired, even though your body is sore from the constant labor. It's a harsh truth in this world. There's no time for rest. Not even when you're exhausted. Not when your muscles scream for mercy. You've already spent so much of your life this way that the thought of stopping never even crosses your mind. You rise, not because you want to, but because you must. The earth, the animals, your family, everything depends on it. Everything you do is a sacrifice in service of survival. As you head out into the cold, you feel the weight of every step. You're already thinking about the day ahead. There's the work in the fields, the maintenance of the animals, and the repairs that never seem to stop. Every day brings new chores, new duties, and they all add up, leaving you with little room to breathe. The idea of taking a break, of resting even for a few moments, seems impossible. Your day is already laid out before you, and it will unfold, whether you're ready or not. The animals are hungry, just like you, and they can't wait. The goats bleat, the chickens cluck, and the cows low impatiently, waiting for you to tend to them. There's no time to care about your own hunger or discomfort. You've got to feed them first. You might be lucky if there's a scrap of bread left from yesterday's meal, but if not, you make do. You grab whatever scraps are available, sometimes only stale, moldy bread, if you're lucky enough to have any at all. While you feed the animals, the cold begins to sink deeper into your skin. The small fires you tend inside your hut aren't enough to warm your bones completely. The temperature outside can freeze the water in the troughs, and by the time you're done, your fingers are numb from the chill. But the work doesn't stop. You can't stop. If the animals aren't fed, if they aren't taken care of, they won't survive. And without them, you don't survive. Once the animals are settled, you move on to the fields. You've got crops to tend to, seeds to plant, weeds to pull. The labor never ends. You'd think that after all these years, your body would become used to the physical toll, but it never does. Every movement aches, every task feels like it's too much. Yet still, you push forward, because stopping isn't an option. You know better. You're out in the fields before the sun has even fully risen. You can feel the soil beneath your feet, the texture of the earth shifting with each step. You till the ground, working the soil that provides everything you have. But it's never easy. The earth can be unforgiving, especially when the weather turns against you. The cold can freeze the crops in the early season, the droughts can drain the land of its vitality, and the pests can eat away at everything you've worked so hard to grow. Still, you keep going. It doesn't matter if the day is hot, cold, or damp. Your body hurts, but you push through. You do it because if you don't, you won't make it to the next season. Every hour spent in the field is another hour of grueling work. There's no rest, no relief, and no one else to do it for you. You've got to carry the weight of it all. The survival of your family, the survival of your farm. There's no one else to pick up the slack. The peasants don't have the luxury of working together for convenience. They work together out of necessity. But even then, it's rare for anyone to ask for help. You can't afford to. You've got to make it work on your own. Even if you manage to get some work done, there's no guarantee the weather will cooperate. If the rains don't come, if the sun isn't just right, the crops won't grow, and that means starvation. The reality of it hangs over you like a dark cloud, and with each passing day, it grows heavier. You pray to whatever gods you believe in, offering silent words for better weather, for more food, for safety. But even the gods aren't guaranteed to listen. The land gives you what it wants, when it wants, and if it's in a bad mood, there's nothing you can do about it. The work is never truly done. Even when you finish for the day, the exhaustion settles into your bones. You eat whatever little you've managed to gather, maybe sharing a small portion with your family. But there's no time for luxury. There's no time for rest, not when there's still more work tomorrow. And when the seasons change, the pressure increases. The harvest must be brought in, the barns must be stocked, and the animals must be prepared for the coming winter. It's a never-ending cycle of labor, and each year brings its own challenges. You don't get to relax. You don't get to take a vacation. You work until you drop, and even then, there's no guarantee you'll survive another year. The night settles in, and for a brief moment, there's a sense of peace, but it's fleeting. The shadows stretch long across your hut as the last bit of daylight fades. Inside, the fire flickers, casting a warm glow, but the heat is short-lived. The cold quickly creeps back in, gnawing at your joints. The fire will only last so long, and when it dies down, the night will be cold, with only the heat of your body and the warmth of those around you to keep you from freezing. Your evening meal is meager at best, whatever's left over from the day's work, or whatever scraps you could gather from your garden, or the meager stores you've managed to save. Maybe some porridge, maybe a thin slice of bread, perhaps a bit of cheese or salted meat. If you're lucky, there are no feasts in this life, no indulgence in rich foods. You eat to survive, not to enjoy. The food is bland, often stale, and it's a daily reminder of just how little you have. The evening is the only time you can slow down, but even then, your mind never truly rests. There are always things to think about, to worry over. The work tomorrow is already in your thoughts. The planting, the weeding, the repairing, and the endless chores. You can hear the sounds of your neighbors from their own huts too, and you know they're feeling the same weariness you are. Everyone is caught in the same grind, the same struggle to make it through another day. There's a shared understanding that life will always be hard, but that doesn't make it easier. You may sit with your family around the hearth, huddled together for warmth, but even here, there's a distance between you and them. It's not an emotional distance, but a physical one. You may be side by side, but there's no comfort in that closeness. The silence can be deafening. Not from a lack of words, but because the conversation is about practical matters, food, work, health. You talk about the next task, how the fields are doing, what needs repairing, what you'll do if the weather doesn't improve. There's no room for frivolity or leisure. Every word is a reminder of the harshness of your existence. But even amidst this harsh reality, there are moments of familial warmth. You'll share stories of the past, of family history, of moments you'll never forget. But even then, the stories aren't romanticized. They're filled with struggles and suffering. You share the same quiet understanding that this is the life you've been dealt, and there's no escaping it. It's not about enjoying the luxury of warmth or the comfort of a good meal. It's about enduring until the next day, the next year, or perhaps until the next season, when the harvest could make or break your survival. The fire burns low in the hearth as the night drags on, but there's no time to rest easy. Sleep is the only respite from the endless grind, and yet, even sleep doesn't come easily. The cold seeps in through the cracks in the walls, and every time you turn, you can feel the stiffness in your back and limbs from the day's labor. Your body is heavy, sore from the constant toil, but there's no choice. You can't rest until you have to. Sleep may come, but it's not peaceful. It's filled with nightmares of failure. You dream of a poor harvest, of hungry mouths, of animals lost to disease or thieves. You wake up, drenched in sweat, unsure of whether what you've experienced is a nightmare or the reality you face every day. There's no comfort in sleep, only brief escape from a world that's always demanding. As the morning light creeps back into the room, it's already too bright to stay in bed any longer. The cold bite of the stone floor greets you once more as you rise, your muscles stiff from the night's restless sleep. You're already tired before the day begins, your body weighed down by the memory of yesterday's labor and the knowledge that today will be no different. There's no time for stretching, no time for easing into the day. The tasks that await you don't care how tired you are. They don't care how sore your back is or how empty your stomach feels. The moment you step outside, the familiar cold hits you like a slap in the face. You're accustomed to the biting air now, but it still takes a moment for the cold to seep into your skin and bones. You grab the tools you'll need for the day, more likely than not, the same worn tools you've used for years, and head straight for the animals. You start with the livestock again, feeding, watering, and cleaning. The animals are still waiting for you, their grumbling bellies demanding attention. The animals don't know you're tired. They don't care how little food you have left. They need to be fed, and you are their only provider. It's an endless cycle, morning, noon, and night. The animals are your responsibility. When the weather turns bad, they need more care. When the seasons shift, they require more maintenance. And when they fall ill, it's your hands that must tend to them, no matter how little knowledge you have about veterinary care. You do what you can with herbs, salves, or the crude remedies passed down through generations, but it's a constant battle. If you fail, if one of the animals dies, That could mean your family has less food, less income, or even less warmth come winter. You feed them, even when your stomach growls louder than theirs. Your work is never really done. There's always more to do, more feeding, more mucking out the pens, more shoveling waste and cleaning up. As the day moves on, the barnyard becomes a blur of smells, sounds, and dust. The harsh reality of it all settles in your chest, a weight you can't escape. And then comes the real work. The fields. Your body aches from the morning's labor, but there's no time to rest. If you don't work the land, the crops won't grow. If you don't plant the seeds, your family will starve come winter. You grab the plow again, and you go to work, this time in the fields that stretch endlessly before you. The soil is your life. Its productivity, its fertility, determines whether you live or die. The earth is unforgiving. The soil is hard, or it's too wet, or the weather's too cold. You've got to get the plow through the soil, and if it's too dry, too wet, or too stubborn, it's up to you to make sure it gets done. The oxen, or horses you use, are tired too. They're working as hard as you, their hooves sinking into the mud, or kicking up dust as they pull the plow across the land. It's not easy. The tools are worn down, your body is already aching from the morning's work, and yet you still have hours of labor ahead of you. Your muscles scream, your hands blister and crack, but you have to keep going. The land won't wait. The Lord won't wait. The harvest won't wait. You won't eat unless you do this. Even when the rain comes, and it always does, you have to keep working. Wet soil, soggy clothes, and freezing winds are part of the deal. There's no luxury of retreating into a warm home or resting until the storm passes. Your body shakes with cold, but you push through. The earth demands it. The land doesn't care about your pain. It's indifferent to your suffering. The rain could drown your crops, or it could nourish them. You don't know yet. All you can do is keep pushing, keep planting, keep working. You don't know if you're making progress. The weeds keep growing, the pests keep invading, and the weather keeps changing. Every time you think you're ahead, you fall behind. The struggle is never ending, and you realize deep down that no matter how much you work, there's always something threatening your survival. The uncertainty is a heavy burden that you carry every day, and it never lets up. By midday, you're exhausted. The sun is high, and your body aches with the accumulated weight of the morning's labor. Your stomach is empty, gnawing at you like a wolf. The food you ate earlier is long gone, and there's no real comfort to be found in the break you're given. But there's no real break. You eat what little you have, perhaps a small portion of bread, maybe a piece of cheese, a bit of stale porridge. It's enough to keep you going for a while longer, but it's never enough. There's no food delivery service in this time. There's no way to call for a takeout order. If you want to eat, you have to work for it. You've spent your entire life working the land, keeping your animals fed, and trying to gather enough food to get by. The thought of a meal is always present, but you don't get to enjoy it. The work never stops. Even when you finish your tasks for the day, there's always something else that needs to be done. The animals need to be checked again, the fences need repairing, and the grain needs to be stored for the winter. You look out at the land, exhausted, wondering if it will all be enough to get you through the season. You look at the sky, unsure whether the weather will be kind or cruel. The sun sets, and you find yourself wishing for just a moment of peace, a moment where you're not consumed by the relentless cycle of survival. But peace isn't coming. It never does. As dawn breaks, the cold morning light seeps through the cracks in the walls, signaling the start of another day. You awake to the same aches, the same weariness that you fell asleep with. There's no rest from this life. The sleep you managed to get last night wasn't enough to restore you, and the warmth of the fire is a distant memory now. You rise from your thin bed, stiff and sore, and brace yourself for another grueling day. Your body protests every move. You try to stretch, but your limbs feel heavy, as if the very weight of the work from the day before has been physically embedded in your bones. Your back is sore from the constant bending, your hands raw from gripping tools, your feet calloused and blistered from trudging through the mud and muck of the fields. Every step is a reminder of how taxing this life is. But, as always, you don't have a choice. You have to push through. The first thing you do is check on the animals again. It's an early task that never really stops. They need food, they need water, and they need care. It's hard to say whether they're a blessing or a burden. Without them, you wouldn't have any hope of food or income. But they too are fragile, subject to disease, the weather, and predators. And the work they require only adds to the exhaustion of your already full day. Feeding them is one thing, but the animals are demanding creatures. You must tend to their pens, scoop out their waste, build their shelter if it's fallen apart, and protect them from whatever dangers might arise. The noise of the barnyard, lowing cows, bleating goats, clucking chickens, becomes a constant background hum. It's not peaceful, it's overwhelming. The winter months can be especially harsh. The cold takes its toll on the animals too. The once vibrant animals seem sluggish, their coats thinning or their energy drained by the cold. You have to check their hooves for any sign of disease. And when one of them falls ill, it's up to you to try and remedy it with whatever meager knowledge you have. There are no veterinarians in this world. Only your hands, your experience, and maybe some herbs that have been passed down from others in the village. But you are not alone. You are always surrounded by the hum of life. Whether it's the daily routine of your family or the constant work that must be done. When you finally finish tending to the animals, you are already tired, but there's no time to waste. The day is already growing long, and there's still much to be done. Your next task is the fields. The soil is waiting for you. The land always demands attention. Whether you're planting seeds, fixing fences, or gathering firewood, the earth will not wait for you to take a break. The fields are vast, and though they may not seem like much, they are your lifeline. If they don't yield crops, if the weather turns against you, it could be the difference between life and death. But working the land is not easy. You don't have modern machinery. You don't have anything but your hands, your tired body, and some rudimentary tools. The plow you use is an old one, worn down by years of use. It's heavy, cumbersome, and often difficult to maneuver, especially when the earth is particularly hard or dry. Your oxen, if you're lucky enough to have any, pull the plow, but even they tire quickly. There's no rest as you work the fields, no comfort in the labor. The sun beats down, and your body aches with every movement. Sweat pours down your face, your back as you bend to plant the seeds or pull weeds. The weeds grow fast, too fast, and if you don't stay ahead of them, your crops will be smothered. But no matter how hard you work, the land never feels like it's giving you anything in return. It's always a gamble. Sometimes the harvest is bountiful, sometimes it's a total loss. The uncertainty hangs over you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The weather is the only thing that can determine whether you'll eat or starve, and it's completely out of your control. If the rains come too early or too late, the crops fail. If the frost hits at the wrong time, your hard work could be ruined. If the pests invade, you might lose everything. And once again, it's all out of your hand. As the hours pass, you can feel your energy draining. You're not even sure when you last ate. You haven't had a full meal in days, maybe weeks. You live on scraps, hoping you'll make it through the day and into tomorrow. You don't get to enjoy a meal the way people do today. You eat when you can, and it's never enough. If you're lucky, you get a thick bowl of porridge, maybe a few slices of bread. Meat is a rarity, and fruit or vegetables are far from a given. You eat what you have, when you can. By the time nightfall arrives, you feel as though you've aged years in just one day. Your back is stiff, your muscles aching from hours of constant labor. But when the sun sets, there's no sense of relief. The work doesn't stop just because the sky goes dark. The firewood has to be chopped, the animals must be secured, and food has to be prepared. You may try to relax, but it's hard to do so when you know there's always more to be done. And the sleep you long for? It's never truly restful. You're always awake, constantly adjusting to the uncomfortable bed of straw or your aching muscles. And when you finally drift into a fitful slumber, the cold air seeps into your bones, making the little warmth left in your body a fleeting comfort. Tomorrow, it starts all over again. You wake to the same stiff body, sore from yesterday's work, but there's no time to linger. The world outside is already calling, demanding your attention. The cold from last night still clings to the walls of the hut as you pull yourself out of the straw bed. The wind whips through the cracks in the walls, and the faint light from the rising sun does little to combat the bone-chilling air. The temperature hasn't improved, and you can feel the icy draft as you move across the floor, barefoot, your feet immediately numb from contact with the cold ground. Today will be the same as yesterday, endless hours of physical labor, grueling tasks that never stop. The work is a constant reminder of your place in the world, of your position as a peasant, bound to the land and tied to the cycle of survival. You have no choice. The day must be lived out, step by painful step. You begin with the animals again. They are waiting, just as they did yesterday. You can't afford to waste time. No matter how tired you feel, they need food, water, and shelter. If you let the smallest task slide, if you miss even one of these daily chores, you could lose everything. The animals might fall sick, the crops might not survive, or in the worst case, you might face the wrath of the Lord, who demands his due regardless of your circumstances. As you feed the animals, you can feel the weariness in your muscles, the fatigue building with every motion. There's no joy in it, no sense of satisfaction, only the mechanical repetition of a life that requires constant attention, a cycle that is never ending. Even if you worked harder than anyone else, you'd still be left with the same toll on your body, the same empty promises of success. After feeding the livestock, you move to the fields. You know what's required of you, but your body is crying out for rest. Your hands are blistered, and your legs ache from the constant bending and walking. But you don't have the luxury of slowing down. You don't have the luxury of stopping to catch your breath. The earth doesn't care if you're tired. It needs to be worked, and if it's not, everything you've worked for will be lost. The harvest depends on it, and if the crops fail, so does your chance at surviving the coming months. The fields are vast, stretching as far as the eye can see. The plow is your only companion in this endless task. It's heavy, unwieldy, and it barely does the job. The soil is stubborn, but you have to keep plowing, turning over the earth, making the way for the seeds you'll plant. You can feel every muscle in your body protesting as you move, your body begging you to stop, to rest. But there's no time for that. If you don't finish today's work, it will pile up tomorrow. The hours blur into one another as you work in the fields. The sun beats down on you relentlessly. There's no shelter from its rays, no relief from its constant heat. And yet, despite the heat, despite the soreness in your body, you keep going. You know that every day without progress is a day lost. If you rest, even for a moment, the land will punish you. It's a cruel cycle. The more you work, the more you realize that the rewards are minimal, that the hours you've spent working might not yield a good harvest. It's not about how hard you work. It's about luck. It's about whether the weather will cooperate. The rain, the sun, the wind, these forces control your fate. But even when the work is done for the day, there's still no sense of relief. You must still gather firewood. You must still tend to the animals, and there's always something that needs repairing. The roof needs fixing, or the fence has fallen over, or the food stores need to be checked. The barn is never fully in order, the animals never fully cared for. There's always something to do. There's never a moment of peace, never a time when you can put down the weight of survival. And even when you're done, when the sun finally dips below the horizon, when your body feels like it might give out, there's still that nagging feeling that you haven't done enough. At night, you're too tired to think. You collapse into your straw bed, hoping for a moment of rest. But there's no rest. Your body aches with the memory of the day's labor, your muscles protesting every move. The fire burns low in the hearth, and the cold creeps back in, seeping into the corners of your hut. You're not just tired physically, your mind is tired. The constant worry, the constant fear of failure, it follows you even when you sleep. There's no escaping it. The gnawing hunger in your stomach, the worry that the harvest won't be enough, the fear that your family will go hungry. All of these thoughts swirl around as you try to sleep, try to shut out the noise of the world. But sleep never comes easily. The night falls faster than you'd like, and even the dim light from the fire seems to offer no real warmth. You're used to the darkness by now, but tonight it feels heavier than usual. The day's work lingers on your body, and even as the fire crackles in the hearth, it's not enough to thaw the deep fatigue that has set in. There's no comfort to be found here, just the promise of another long day tomorrow, and the day after that. You look around the room, the walls that seem to close in on you as your family gathers around the hearth. You might talk about the small things, how the weather's changing, how the crops are doing, or how much more work there is to be done, but the weight of it all sits like an elephant in the room. There's no time for long conversations or idle chatter. The exhaustion is a common thread among everyone here. You share it, and you know it will never go away. The fire flickers, casting fleeting shadows on the walls. You might eat a small meal, perhaps some gruel, some bread, or whatever small scraps you could muster throughout the day. There's no luxury in it, no joy, just a quick, necessary sustenance to get you through the night. If you're lucky, you might have a small amount of meat, maybe salted or smoked, but those are rare treats, not the reality of your day-to-day life. The same food will repeat tomorrow, and the next day. You'll eat, but you won't enjoy it. There's no room for enjoyment in a life like this. You eat because you have to, because the food is what keeps you from passing out from hunger. After the brief meal, the duties for the night begin. You can't rest just because it's dark. The animals need to be secured, their pens closed for the night. The fire needs to be fed with more wood to last through the cold night. And while your family rests, or at least tries to rest, you'll be the one to finish what little tasks remain. The darkness outside is overwhelming, but you don't fear it. The fear is not of the dark, but of what the darkness might bring. What could go wrong while you sleep? What if the barn catches fire? What if the animals get sick overnight? What if thieves come? There's no safety net. No one is watching over you. If something goes wrong, it's all on your shoulders. You finish the final tasks for the day, but your body is still humming with exhaustion. You've worked all day and now it's time to try and rest. But there's no real comfort in sleep. The bed of straw you sleep on is hard, uncomfortable, and full of bugs. The cold stone floor doesn't offer much comfort, and there's nothing to soften it. If you're lucky, you might have a small pillow made of cloth or straw, but even that doesn't make it better. Your body is stiff from the hours of work, your bones sore and tired. You try to settle in, but there's no escaping the discomfort. The worst part is, sleep never truly feels like rest. You lie awake most nights, thinking about the work you still need to do tomorrow, thinking about whether the harvest will survive, whether you'll be able to make it through the winter. Your worries keep you awake, your mind racing through what you might need to do. What if there's a drought? What if the animals don't survive the winter? What if you don't have enough grain to feed your family? And even if you do get to sleep, the dreams aren't kind. Your mind drifts back to the hard work you've done, the long hours, the back-breaking labor, and the constant pressure of survival. There's no escape from the reality of your life, even in your dreams. You dream of crops failing, of your children going hungry, of the cold setting in too soon. The fears are always there, lingering on the edges of your consciousness, no matter how hard you try to push them away. The moments of sleep that you do get aren't restful. They're fragmented, broken up by the discomfort of your body and the constant reminders of the challenges you face. There is no luxury in sleep, only a brief, fleeting escape before the brutal reality of the next day begins again. The next morning comes with the same suffocating weight as the last. The moment you open your eyes, you feel the familiar pain in your body, a reminder that the grueling labor of yesterday has left its mark. Your muscles protest as you sit up, the stiffness and soreness almost unbearable, but there's no time to dwell on it. The day's tasks are already calling, and the world outside doesn't care how much you ache. You must get up and face the same demands again. You rise and head out into the cold, your body sluggish, but your mind already racing through the list of things that need doing. The animals must be fed, the firewood gathered, and the fields must be tended to. Every task feels like a mountain to climb, but you've learned to live with the weight. You know what comes next, and you know that there's no relief on the horizon. The animals are waiting for you once again. You can hear the lowing of the cows and the restless noise of the chickens and goats, all demanding attention. The barn is filled with the smell of manure and dampness, and the core of feeding them is a reminder of how much work is involved in even the smallest task. You feed them, check on their health, and make sure everything is secure. But the satisfaction of a job well done is fleeting. You can never rest for long, because the demands are relentless. If you don't take care of them, your animals could get sick, and that's a loss you can't afford. You're not just feeding the animals, you're constantly maintaining their pens, their shelters, and their well-being. The work is unending, but it's the cost of survival. Every day, you repeat the same rituals, hoping that this time, the animals will be healthy enough to survive the long months ahead. Once you finish with the animals, the fields await you. The earth is never patient. If the crops aren't tended to, they won't grow, and your family won't eat. And it's not just about planting the crops. You have to tend to them every single day. Weeds must be pulled, pests must be chased away, and water must be carried if the rain hasn't come. It's the same struggle year after year. You till the soil, plant the seeds, and hope the harvest will be plentiful enough to get you through the harsh winter. The earth feels like it's mocking you. You spend all your energy trying to make something grow, only to find that a bad frost, a drought, or a pest infestation could ruin it all. And even if you do get a harvest, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to keep it. The Lord's taxes will be collected. The price of grain might be too high to afford. And if it's a bad season, you might not have enough to last through the winter. Your body aches with each passing hour in the field. The plow feels heavier than ever, the soil more resistant to your efforts. The physical labor never stops, and with each day, you feel the strain of it all. Your back is sore from bending, your hands raw from gripping the worn tools. You sweat under the hot sun, but the work must continue. The harvest must come in. By midday, you feel the weight of the sun beating down on you, the heat making it harder to move, to focus. Your stomach growls, but there's no time for a real meal. You have a small ration of bread, maybe some stale cheese, but that's about it. There's no time to sit and enjoy a meal. There's no time to savor food. You eat because you have to keep going. You don't have the luxury of enjoying your food. You eat in quick bites, rushing to get back to the fields, to the animals, to whatever task needs your attention. The day is far from over, and you can already feel the weariness creeping back into your bones. Every task feels endless, and with each passing hour, you realize just how little you truly have to show for it. As the day draws to a close, you head back to the hut, exhausted but with no sense of relief. There's more to be done, even though the sun has set. The animals need to be locked up for the night. The firewood needs to be gathered, and you need to prepare for the next day's work. By now your body feels like a machine that's been running on fumes for too long. Your hands are raw, your legs stiff, and your shoulders ache with the burden of a day's work. You know there's still more to do, but there's a part of you that longs for a moment to stop, a moment of peace. But that moment never comes. The work doesn't stop. You've survived another day, but at what cost? The fatigue is overwhelming, and yet, you know there's no time to rest. The world doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. It doesn't care about your exhaustion. It doesn't care that you're struggling to keep up. If you don't work, if you don't push through the pain, the consequences are too great. The animals won't survive. The crops won't grow. Your family will suffer. The night settles in, but it offers no real relief. The fire burns low, the warmth quickly fading. You wrap yourself in your thin blanket, your body aching, your mind racing. There's always something more to worry about. What if the weather turns cold again? What if the grain you've stored is ruined by pests or mold? What if the Lord demands too much? The fears never stop. They follow you. Even as you try to sleep, you're exhausted. But the cycle continues. Tomorrow will be the same endless work, the same struggles, the same hunger, and you'll get up once again to face it. The sun rises again, bringing the same cold, biting air that you've come to expect with each new day. The fire inside the hut is already flickering low, and you know it won't last long before it burns out completely. You'll have to gather more firewood, but that can't happen until after you've tended to the animals. Their constant needs are the first thing on your mind every day. Without them, your survival is uncertain. The chickens must be fed, the cows must be milked, and the goats need water. It's a tedious and never-ending chore, but it's essential. They rely on you, just as your family does. You drag yourself out of bed, the stiffness in your back from yesterday's labor already taking its toll. As you step outside into the cold morning, your breath comes out in visible puffs of mist, freezing almost immediately as it hits the air. The world is still dark, and the stillness around you is unsettling. You can hear the faint rustle of the animals, the soft cluck of a chicken, or the low moo of a cow waiting to be milked. The world outside is quiet, too quiet, and it feels like an echo of the silence that lives in your chest. The exhaustion hasn't left you. It's settled in for the long haul. Your body is crying out for rest, but there's no time for that. There's no room for weakness in this world. There's only work, and it must be done. Your feet are numb from the cold as you walk through the muck to reach the barn. The mud is thick and sticky from last night's rain, and every step feels heavier than the last. The animals are already impatient, waiting for you to feed them. The barn is a cramped space, filled with the stench of waste and hay, but there's no time to care about the filth. You feed the animals quickly, your hands shaking from the cold. You check on them all, making sure they're healthy, hoping none of them have fallen ill overnight. You can't afford to lose any of them, especially during the harsh winter months. Each one is precious to your survival. A sick animal could mean the difference between surviving the winter and starving to death. The fear of loss is constant. Once the animals are fed, it's time to move on. The fields await you, and you can already feel the fatigue weighing you down. It's a familiar feeling by now, one that never seems to leave. The earth needs constant care, constant attention. Even if you worked all day yesterday, even if your body is stiff and sore, the land won't wait. The crops won't grow unless you work for them. And the weather is always unpredictable. It could be too dry, too wet, or too cold, and your crops could fail before they even have a chance to sprout. The land is as unforgiving as the lords who rule over it, and there's no room for mistakes, no time to question your actions. The plow must be moved, the seeds must be planted, and the weeds must be cleared. If you don't do it, who will? You move through the fields, mechanically, one foot in front of the other. Your body aches with every movement, but there's no stopping now. You've worked this land for as long as you can remember, and it still feels like you're just beginning. Every year, you hope for better results, but they never seem to come. The land yields what it will, and the weather is unpredictable at best. The rain could be too much, or it could be none at all. You never know until it's too late. There's no sense of control over your own life. It feels as though you're caught in a never-ending battle between nature and survival, and nature has the upper hand. As you continue working, the hours slip by without you even noticing. The sun is high now, burning down on you with unrelenting heat. Your skin is red and raw from the exposure, but there's no time to shield yourself from the sun. You can't afford to stop. The plow feels heavier with every step. Your arms burn, your legs are stiff, but you keep pushing forward, inching your way across the field. The crops are slowly beginning to grow, but you're unsure if they'll be enough. The harvest feels like a distant dream, something you're not sure will ever come to fruition. Still, you keep working, praying that this year will be different, praying that you'll have enough food to make it through the winter. The labor continues. The weeds must be pulled, the pests must be chased away, the land must be watered. There's no end to it. And as the afternoon passes, your body only grows more tired. The sun begins to set, but there's no relief. The work still isn't done. You'll have to head back to the barn to secure the animals again, to gather firewood for the night, to repair whatever's broken. The chores don't stop just because the sun goes down. They stretch into the night, and when the day ends, you barely have the strength to think. As darkness falls, your body feels like it's been through a war. The hours of manual labor have left you physically drained, but there's no time to rest. The cycle of work continues. You gather the last of the firewood, secure the animals for the night, and prepare for tomorrow. The fire in the hearth flickers, barely enough to keep the cold at bay. The darkness outside presses in, but there's no sense of peace, no relief. You don't sleep soundly. Your mind races, constantly worrying about the work that still needs to be done, the crops that might fail, the animals that might get sick. The weight of survival hangs over you like a stone, and it never lets go. The night is long, but sleep comes only in fits. You lie on the hard straw mattress, feeling the ache in your back, your arms, and your legs. Every movement feels like a burden, your body weary from the never-ending cycle of labor. The fire in the hearth has burned down to embers, offering little warmth. The chill creeps back in, and you can feel it in your bones as the night stretches on. You close your eyes, hoping for rest, but your mind keeps racing. Every night is the same. You worry about the coming day, about the work that still needs to be done. the harvest that might not come in, the animals that need to be cared for, the weather that could ruin it all. Your mind churns with the uncertainty of it all. Will the crops survive? Will the weather be kind? Will there be enough food to feed your family through the winter? These are the thoughts that haunt you, that keep you awake long into the night. And when you do finally manage to sleep, it's not restful. You dream of fields burned by drought, of animals that have fallen ill, of empty granaries. The dreams are often worse than the reality. At least in reality, you can still take action, but in your dreams, you can do nothing to stop the inevitable. Morning comes too soon, as it always does. The light filters into the room through the cracks in the walls, and you're awake before you even want to be. The same body aches greet you, the same exhaustion that never fully goes away. You sit up slowly, trying to shake off the fatigue, but it lingers like a weight. There's no time for rest, though. The work is waiting. Your feet hit the cold stone floor, and the chill immediately seeps into your bones. The rest of the world is still, quiet, still, but your day has already begun. You don't have the luxury of waiting for a moment of peace. You grab the tools you'll need for the day and head outside into the morning air, already feeling the weight of the tasks ahead of you. The first task, as always, is the animals. You're used to the routine by now, the feeding, the cleaning, the checking for illness. It's all automatic, just another part of the endless cycle. But even so, the work is never easy. The animals need attention, and without them, you wouldn't survive, but they're not easy to care for. They're demanding, each one with its own needs. The chickens must be fed, the goats must be milked, the cows must be milked, too. Every task is urgent. If you neglect one of them, if you fail in one small part of the process, it could be the end of your food supply for the week, or worse, the season. After tending to the animals, you move to the fields. You don't even have time to eat yet. You'll grab a bite later, maybe some stale bread or a small portion of cheese. You've learned to survive on little. The plow is waiting for you. The land is waiting for you, but your body is already protesting. Every part of you aches from yesterday's labor, and you know that today will bring the same. The soil is heavy, the plow is stubborn, and the weeds keep coming. They grow faster than you can pull them, and if you don't stay ahead, they'll choke the crops. You think about stopping for a moment, catching your breath, but there's no time. If you stop, the work piles up. The weeds keep growing. The crops don't grow on their own. The weather isn't always your friend. And as much as you wish you could rest, you know you can't afford to. Every moment spent not working is a moment you're not feeding your family. The sun climbs higher in the sky, and the heat becomes unbearable. The work is relentless. Every step is a challenge. Every motion requires effort. The plow feels heavier with every passing minute. The soil more stubborn. The rain hasn't come in days, and you can feel the earth beneath you beginning to dry up, cracking as it bakes under the sun. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't control the weather. You can only work. By midday, the tiredness is overwhelming. You've spent hours in the fields, but there's no end in sight. You grab a small portion of food, barely enough to keep the hunger at bay, a few slices of bread, maybe some dried meat, if you're lucky. But even eating feels like a chore. You don't have time to sit and enjoy your meal. There's no relaxation in your life. You eat, you chew quickly, and you get back to work. Your body aches with exhaustion, but your mind is always a step ahead, calculating what still needs to be done. The day isn't over yet. There are still the animals to tend to, the tools to check, the repairs to make. The thought of rest seems so far out of reach. You almost don't remember what it feels like. The sense of relief, the comfort of a full meal, or a warm bed, all seem like distant dreams. The life you lead is a constant state of effort and survival. As evening falls, the work doesn't stop. You're still moving, still laboring. The animals need securing for the night. The fences need repairing, and the firewood must be brought in for the coming cold. Even as the darkness settles in, you find yourself reaching for one more chore, just to ensure that everything is ready for tomorrow. You look out at the fields, barely able to make out the rows in the dimming light, and wonder if it will all be enough. The night brings little comfort. You lie down to sleep, but sleep is never restful. You hear the sounds of the wind howling outside, the rustling of animals in their pens, and the creaking of the hut as the cold seeps in. There's a constant hum in the back of your mind, the worry that tomorrow will bring the same struggles, the same exhaustion, and the same uncertainty. There's no end to it, no day off, no relief. It's a never-ending cycle that repeats itself year after year, and every day you wonder how much longer you can endure. You wake up to the same oppressive cold that greeted you the day before. Your body protests as you rise, stiff and sore from the relentless labor that has come to define your life. You move slowly, your joints aching as you stretch, and the exhaustion lingers like a shadow over you. There's no rest, no escape, and the first thing you notice is the same feeling of dread that fills you every morning. The fear that today will be another struggle to survive. The hope that maybe, just maybe, today will be the day when things finally start to improve. But knowing deep down that it's just a fleeting thought. You grab the tools for the day, those same worn, rusted implements that have been with you for years. The plow, the hoe, the sickle, all instruments of survival. But none of them bring comfort. They are just extensions of your labor, pieces of metal that make the endless tasks of a peasant's life bearable, at best. Your tools are a constant reminder of your position, stuck on this land, forced to work endlessly, always hoping for just a little bit of relief. The animals are your first priority, just as they have been every day before. You make your way outside, feeling the chill of the morning air hit your skin. The cold stings as you breathe in, and the sharp contrast between the warmth of the fire inside your hut and the cold outside is a constant reminder that nothing in this life is easy. Everything comes at a cost. As you enter the barn, the animals greet you with their usual impatience. You feel the weight of their hunger, the responsibility that you must meet. You feed them quickly, grain for the chickens, water for the goats, and hay for the cows. You do it as quickly as possible, knowing that there's no time to waste. Your stomach growls in protest, but there's no time to eat yet. The work doesn't stop, not even for a minute. The day is already growing long, and the sun is rising higher. The fields are calling to you, demanding attention. You finish with the animals, but that's just the beginning. You know the land won't wait. The weeds keep growing. The soil keeps needing to be worked. You grab the plow and head out, the heavy tool dragging behind you like a burden that never gets lighter. Each step you take in the field is another reminder of how relentless life is. The plow feels heavier with each step. Your legs are already sore from yesterday, and the soil feels more resistant than it ever has before. The earth is stubborn, the weeds are unrelenting, and the crops, if they even manage to grow, seem to always be just out of reach. You can't afford to slow down. The harvest is still months away, but already you feel the urgency. The weather could change at any moment. A storm could wipe out the crops. A drought could leave you with nothing, and no one will care. If you fail, your family goes hungry. If you fail, there's no one to help you. The Lord doesn't care if your crops die or if your family suffers. He'll come to collect his taxes, no matter what the land gives. By midday, the heat is suffocating. The sun beats down on your back, and your body is drenched in sweat. You try to catch your breath, but it's hard. Every movement feels like an effort. You pause for a moment, but there's no rest to be found. There's no one to talk to, no one to share the burden with. The world feels heavy, physically, emotionally, mentally. Every task feels like an impossible hurdle, and yet you know you can't stop. You have to keep going. You have no choice. You eat what you can, bread, cheese, maybe some scraps from the night before. But it's never enough. You never get to truly fill your stomach. You eat to survive, not to enjoy. Every bite feels like a small victory, but it's fleeting. It's not a meal, it's just fuel. The hunger is always there, gnawing at you, reminding you that you don't have enough. The second half of the day stretches on like a never-ending loop. You're still in the fields, still planting, still tending to the crops. The plow feels heavier, the soil harder, the hours longer. Your hands are raw, your back is stiff, and your thoughts begin to cloud with exhaustion. But there's no time to stop and think. The work must continue. Every muscle in your body aches, and every step feels like it could be your last. You wish for comfort, for even a moment of ease. But comfort doesn't exist here. It's not a luxury you can afford. You can't afford to rest. You can't afford to stop. As evening falls, you're still working. There's no sense of relief, no sense that the day is over. You gather firewood for the night, check on the animals one last time, and prepare for the next day. The sun sets, but you know the work isn't done. It will never be done. Not until the land stops demanding, not until you finally collapse from exhaustion. And when night falls, the cycle continues. You lay your head down, trying to sleep, but sleep never truly comes. The worry is always there. The fear is always there. Tomorrow is just another day of struggle, another day of labor. You'll wake up to the same cold floor, the same long list of tasks, the same ache in your body. You'll work because you must. And when the night comes again, you'll lie awake, wondering if you can keep going. Morning breaks, and once again, you are greeted by the bitter cold of the early hours. Your body is already aching from the day before, but there's no choice. The moment your eyes open, the reality of the day ahead crashes down on you. There's no reprieve, no moment to gather yourself. It's the same routine, the same work, the same struggle. Every part of you feels like it's been worn down, and yet the demands of the land, the animals and the seasons never let up. The animals need your attention first, and you can already feel your back aching as you rise from the straw bed. The chill in the air bites at your skin as you step outside, the damp earth greeting your bare feet. You might be lucky enough to have a pair of shoes, but they're often worn through, leaving your feet exposed to the cold and wet. The morning dew is thick on the grass, and the barn is covered in frost. The air is cold enough to freeze your breath in mid-air, but you don't have time to care about the cold. The animals must be tended to, or the hunger will settle in soon enough. The chickens are the first to greet you, clucking impatiently for food. You can hear the soft moo of the cows and the bleating of the goats, each one waiting for you to begin your daily routine. They don't care that you're tired, that your muscles are sore, or that you didn't get enough sleep. The work must be done, and there is no choice but to do it. You feed them quickly, trying to minimize the time spent in the cold. Each task, from gathering the eggs to milking the cows, feels like an eternity, but it's necessary. Once the animals are fed and watered, you move on to the next task, the fields. The land calls to you, pulling you towards it with the force of necessity. Every day, the work is the same, but the toll it takes never gets any easier. Your body aches, your mind is foggy with exhaustion, and yet the land will not wait. You need to plow, you need to plant, you need to tend to the crops. No matter how tired you are, no matter how sore your back feels, no matter how heavy the sun is overhead. The plow feels heavy in your hands, the soil more stubborn than it was yesterday. You push through, trying to ignore the aches in your body, trying to focus on the task at hand. The sweat begins to pour down your face, mixing with the dirt, but there's no time to stop. You can't afford to rest. The crops won't grow if you don't work the land. You can't waste a single moment, not when the weather could turn at any time. You know that the rains could come too late, or the drought could ruin everything. Every day you're gambling with your survival. You continue to work, hour after hour, the sun beating down on your back, the sweat stinging your eyes. The hours blend into one another, the pain in your body becoming a constant throb. You pause for a moment to rest, but it's brief. There's no time for real rest. You can only sit for a moment before the next task calls you. The work is endless, and the cycle feels as though it's strangling you. Every day feels like a repeat of the last. The same movements, the same work, the same struggles. There's no room for change, no room for dreams, only survival. By the time midday comes, you're exhausted. The hunger in your stomach gnaws at you, but there's no time to stop and eat a proper meal. You take a small portion of bread, maybe some cheese if you're lucky, but it's never enough. The food you eat never quite satisfies you. It only keeps you going for the next few hours. If you're lucky, you might get a bit of meat once in a while, but those are rare treats. For most of the year, it's just bread and gruel, and it's hard to feel satisfied when your body is constantly yearning for more. But there's no time to focus on that. The work must continue. The fields need your attention. The animals need care. You don't get to stop and think about what you're missing. You don't get the luxury of dreaming of a better life. Your life is this land, these animals, this constant struggle to survive. If you stop working for a second, everything could fall apart. As the day drags on, you feel your energy slipping away. The sun is starting to lower in the sky, but the day isn't over. The labor doesn't stop just because the light fades. The animals need to be brought in for the night. The barn must be secured. The tools must be put away. The firewood must be stacked for the evening. Your body screams for rest, but it's just not in the cards. The tasks still need to be completed. When the night falls, there's no comfort to be found. The fire in the hearth barely warms the room, and the chill creeps into your bones. You gather what little food you have, but there's no joy in eating. There's no time to enjoy the small meals you've prepared. You eat to survive, not to nourish your body. The food doesn't fill you in the way it should. It's just fuel to keep you going, to keep you working for another day. As the darkness settles in, your mind races. The work is never done. The next day will be just as exhausting as the one before. There's always something to worry about. Will the weather ruin the crops? Will the Lord demand too much in taxes? Will the animals survive the winter? You can't escape these thoughts. They follow you even as you try to sleep, even when you're lying in the darkness, too tired to keep your eyes open. Sleep is never truly restful. The fatigue is always there, and you dream of the same things, of crops failing, of animals getting sick, of hunger creeping in. Even when you sleep, the reality of your life is ever present, hovering in the background of every dream. The cycle continues, unbroken, relentless, and unforgiving. Another day breaks, and once again, the harsh cold greets you with open arms. It sinks into your bones, a chill that refuses to let go. Your body groans in protest as you sit up, stiff and sore from the relentless cycle of labor. The same exhaustion weighs down on you, and the same burden of survival hangs heavily in your chest. There's no reprieve, no escape. The moment you open your eyes, you're reminded that today, just like every day before, you must rise and face the same demands. The morning light is still weak as you step out of bed, your bare feet immediately hitting the cold, unforgiving floor. There's no comfort, no softness to greet you, just the chill that wraps around you like a suffocating cloak. You don't have time to adjust to the cold. The animals need you, the barn needs attention. The land needs to be worked. The world doesn't stop for your discomfort. You move sluggishly, your body stiff from the work you did yesterday. The pain in your joints doesn't let up. Every step, every movement feels like an effort. But this is your reality now. No rest, no time for recovery. The work must continue. You don't get to question it. You just have to get up and go. The barnyard is your first stop, and the animals greet you with their usual restlessness. The sound of lowing cows, clucking chickens, and bleating goats fills the air. It's a routine you've become intimately familiar with, and as much as you dread it, you've learned to accept it. The barn is cramped, poorly lit, and filled with the smell of waste, but it's your responsibility to ensure that everything is in order. You must feed them, clean their pens, and check on their well-being. If they're not properly cared for, they won't survive, and if they don't survive, neither will you. Every movement feels like it takes an eternity. Your hands are rough from years of manual labor. Your back aches from bending over to scoop feed into the troughs. It's cold in the barn, and the dampness lingers, biting at your skin. There's no luxury of warmth here. There's no escape from the discomfort. You finish feeding the animals, but already your body is yearning for rest, yearning for comfort that will never come. You can feel your stomach growling, but you know there's no time to eat yet. The fields are waiting for you. The plow calls to you as it does every day. The earth needs to be tilled, the seeds need to be planted, and the weeds must be pulled. You can feel the weight of the land pressing down on you as you make your way to the fields. The work never stops. You're still recovering from yesterday, still aching, still exhausted, but the land demands attention. The cycle doesn't stop because you're tired. The land doesn't rest, and neither can you. The plow feels heavier today. The soil is resistant, and your movements are slow, stiff from the pain that lingers in your body. The sun is climbing higher in the sky, and the heat begins to beat down on your already sore back. The sweat runs down your face, stinging your eyes. But there's no time to stop. There's no time to rest. The crops must be planted, the land must be tended to, and the work will continue until nightfall. As you push the plow through the soil, you notice the land is hardening. The rains have not come in days, and you can already feel the dryness setting in. The plants will struggle to grow in these conditions, but you don't have the luxury of waiting for the perfect weather. You have to work with what you have, and what you have is a plow that doesn't work well, soil that's too dry, and a body that's too tired to continue. But you keep going, because if you don't, the consequences will be dire. You can't afford to fail. The land must provide, or you and your family won't survive the coming winter. By midday, the sun is at its peak, and you are exhausted. Your muscles ache, your back is on fire, and your thirst is unbearable. You've been working for hours, but you can't stop. You eat what you can, maybe some stale bread or a piece of cheese, but it's not enough. You eat because you have to, not because you want to. You can't remember the last time you ate a real meal, one that filled you up and left you satisfied. There's no time to enjoy your food. You shove it in your mouth quickly, chewing in haste. Every bite feels like it's not enough, like it can never fill you up. Hunger is a constant companion, an ache in your stomach that never goes away. The simple foods you eat aren't enough to give you the energy you need to keep going, but it's all you have. It's all you can afford. The afternoon brings more work. The weeds are taking over, and you have to clear them before they can choke the crops. The weeds are relentless. They grow faster than you can pull them, and you wonder if you'll ever catch up. The land is unforgiving. Every weed that sprouts, every pest that invades, is one more obstacle to your survival. You pull at the weeds, but they seem to keep growing back, faster than you can keep up. The battle never ends. By the time the sun begins to set, you're barely holding on. Your body is a mess of aches, and your mind is foggy from exhaustion. You've worked all day through the heat, the cold, the aching muscles, and the hunger, and you're still not done. The day's work is far from over. The animals must be brought in for the night, the barn must be secured, and the remaining chores must be completed. The evening feels like a hollow victory. The work continues, and your body protests, but you push through. You finish what you can, but there's always something else to do. When you finally collapse into bed, you're physically exhausted, but your mind is still racing. The day is over, but the next one is already waiting for you. Tomorrow will be just like today. Another round of grueling labor, another day of survival. Your body aches for rest, but sleep is never peaceful. It's full of dreams about the fields, the crops, the animals, and the endless cycle of work. You wake up already tired, knowing that tomorrow will be another day of the same struggle. The day breaks, and once again, the chill of the morning greets you like an old familiar foe. The same cold stone floor meets your feet as you rise from the bed that barely offers comfort. Your back is stiff from the previous day's labor, your joints creaking under the pressure of another day of work. Your body feels the strain of every single action you've done for weeks, months, years. The weight of it all presses on your body, and yet you know there is no room for weakness. The first task of the day, feeding the animals, comes just as it always has. You stumble through the cold, your breath visible in the frosty morning air, your hands already feeling the biting chill as you begin to feed the livestock. Chickens cluck impatiently at the sight of you, the cows low and steady in their stalls, and the goats, ever restless, start bleating as they wait for their morning meal. They need to be fed, and you're the one responsible for making sure that happens. But as you care for them, you notice the toll this life has taken on you. Your hands are calloused, your fingertips cracked and raw from years of working with rough tools, dirty ropes, and wooden fences. Your muscles ache, each stretch or turn bringing discomfort. You've long stopped thinking about the pain, but it's always there, lingering just beneath the surface. And yet, you can't stop. Your family relies on the animals for food. Your life depends on them. The barn is cold and dark, the smell of manure and hay heavy in the air. But there's no room for sentimentality in these moments. The tasks are urgent. Get them fed, get them watered, check on them for illness. One sick animal could mean losing your food supply, and that's something you can't afford. Once the animals are taken care of, your attention shifts to the fields. They beckon you, their endless expanse demanding your presence. The work doesn't wait. The crops don't care if you're tired or sore. The plow must be dragged through the soil. The weeds must be pulled. The seeds must be planted. The sun is already rising higher, and you can feel it on your back, but it doesn't offer comfort. The land doesn't care about you. The land only cares about being worked. As you take the first steps into the fields, the familiar aches set in. The weight of the plow pulls at your shoulders, and you push forward, feeling the stiffness in your body with each step. The soil feels rough beneath the plow, more difficult to break than it should be, and each pull feels like it takes longer than the last. The land is never easy. It resists your efforts, punishes your attempts to tame it. You're trying to turn the soil, to prepare it for the planting of seeds, but the earth is stubborn. Every step of the way, the sun beats down harder. Your hands, now used to the grip of the plow, begin to blister under the pressure, but you don't stop. You can't stop. The weather is unpredictable, and each day spent working in the fields is another gamble. Will it rain enough? Will the frost hit too soon? The slightest change in the weather could mean disaster, and disaster means hunger, a hunger that could make your entire family suffer. Your back aches from hours of bending over, your arms are sore from pulling the heavy plow, and your legs feel like lead, but you keep going. You don't have the luxury of complaining. The world moves around you, indifferent to your struggles. The Lord doesn't care that you're exhausted. The crops don't care that you're sick. The rain will fall when it falls, and the sun will scorch when it does. You, however, must work in whatever conditions you face. By midday, the sun is at its highest point, and the exhaustion is beginning to take its toll. Your stomach growls, a gnawing emptiness that's always present, but never fully satisfied. You eat quickly, bread, maybe cheese, but nothing more substantial than what you've always had. There's no joy in eating. It's simply fuel for the next task. There's no sitting down and enjoying a meal. Every bite feels rushed. You finish eating, and the work continues. The heat is unbearable now. Your skin's slick with sweat, but there's still so much left to do. Weeds are already beginning to creep in, and the ground is drying out, cracked and stubborn. If the rains don't come soon, your crops might not make it. The soil doesn't care how much you've worked, how much you've suffered. The crops must be tended to, whether the land is cooperating or not. The weeds are relentless. No matter how hard you work, they seem to keep growing. You bend down, pulling at them one by one, but they grow faster than you can clear them. Each pull feels like it's one more obstacle that stands between you and a successful harvest. One more weight on your tired shoulders. Your hands, already raw, tear at the stubborn weeds. You're bleeding now, but there's no time to stop. The work must be done, and no one will help you. As the sun begins to set, your body is barely functioning. Your hands tremble from exhaustion, your head is light from the heat, and you can't remember the last time you felt truly rested. But the animals still need to be secured for the night. The firewood still needs to be gathered, and the barn must be locked up. It's the same every day, an endless string of chores that never seems to stop. And each task, no matter how small, feels like it weighs you down even further. You can't stop. You can't rest. You know that tomorrow you'll wake up with the same aches, the same exhaustion, the same endless work ahead of you. The cycle never ends. It's a relentless loop of labor that drags you forward, whether you want to go or not. As the darkness of night falls, you finally settle into your straw bed, but there is no peace. Your body is sore from the day's labor, and the cold slowly creeps in from the cracks in the walls. Sleep, if it comes, will be brief and restless. Your mind races with worries about the coming season. Will the crops survive? Will your family have enough to eat through the winter? Will you ever get to rest? But even in your exhaustion, the thought of the work to come fills your mind. It never stops. You close your eyes, and tomorrow already feels like it's knocking at your door. The darkness of the night feels like it stretches endlessly, and when morning comes, it feels as though it has barely passed at all. The constant cycle of waking, working, and falling into bed, only to do it all over again, seems to blur the days together. You wake to the same aching body, the same familiar discomforts, and the same gnawing sense of urgency. The cycle never ends. Your body, battered from the labor of previous days, protests as you rise from your bed of straw. You rub your eyes, trying to shake off the weariness, but there's no time for rest. You must face another day of survival. The cold morning air greets you immediately, like an old adversary. You can't escape it, no matter how hard you try. The moment your feet touch the cold floor, your body feels the weight of another day on its shoulders. The cold bites through your clothes. But there's no time to complain. The animals need you first. The animals, your livelihood, are waiting for you, just as they do every morning. You step outside, pulling your threadbare cloak tighter around you as you head to the barn. It's still dark outside, the first traces of dawn just beginning to light up the horizon. The barnyard is a mess. Mud and muck everywhere from the previous day's weather, and the animals are hungry, demanding attention. They've been waiting all night for their food, and you have no choice but to provide it. They rely on you, and their survival is your responsibility. As you feed the chickens, goats, cows, and whatever else you have, you can feel your muscles straining. Each movement feels like a struggle. Your hands are numb from the cold, but you don't stop. You can't afford to. The animals must be fed. Their pens must be cleaned, and their health must be checked. The responsibility is immense. Each moment you spend caring for them is time you could have spent doing something else. Working the fields, gathering firewood, repairing tools. But you know you must take care of them first. They are your only chance at food, and losing any of them would be a disaster. Once the animals are taken care of, you head straight for the fields, the place where most of your life's labor is poured. You look over the land, the plow, the soil, and the crops that might or might not be growing. But you already know what's ahead of you. You know the soil is too dry, the weather too unpredictable, and the harvest is uncertain. You will work, despite the challenges, despite the lack of reward. You know the work must be done whether the earth gives you something in return or not. The plow is in the same state it's been in for years, rusty, worn down, and barely functional, but it's all you have. The earth feels like a beast that doesn't want to be tamed. You shove the plow forward, gritting your teeth against the soreness that seems to increase with every pull. The soil is stubborn today. The plow is heavy, and it pulls at your back with each turn. It feels as if the earth itself is pushing against you. The day continues, in a blur of physical exhaustion. You pull the plow, plant seeds where you can, pull weeds and tend to the crops. But it's always the same. Each action, each movement, feels like a repeat of the last. Sun up, sun down. The days stretch on and on with little to show for them. The weather dictates whether the crops will grow or not, but you have no say in the matter. No matter how hard you work, nature holds the ultimate power. By midday, the heat begins to take its toll. The sun is high in the sky, and the warmth of the day drains you. Your body feels heavy, your muscles sore, and your stomach growls, reminding you that food is scarce. But there's no time to stop and enjoy a full meal. The work never ends, and the tiredness creeps deeper into your bones with each passing hour. You might find some bread to nibble on, or a small bit of cheese, but it's never enough to fill the hunger in your stomach. You eat to survive, not to feel satisfied. As you work, your hands are covered in dirt and calluses. Your back is stiff, but you keep moving. There's no one else to do the work for you. You've learned that over the years, no one comes to help the peasants. The lords don't care about your struggles. Your fellow peasants might help you with a difficult task, but in the end, everyone is in the same situation, working from sunup to sundown, scraping by. The work is endless. The fields demand your attention, and every moment you spend working on them feels like it's never enough. The weeds grow faster than you can pull them, and the crops never seem to thrive the way you need them to. The land doesn't care that you've been at it for hours. It doesn't care how tired you are. You keep moving, because if you stop, the land will continue without you. The crops will grow, or they won't. The weeds will continue to creep in. The fear of failure is always present. If the harvest doesn't come in, What will you feed your family? If the weather is too harsh, if the soil is too dry, you'll lose everything. If the animals get sick, you'll have nothing. The thought of failure presses on you, weighing on your chest. But there's no choice. You have to push through the fear. The land demands it. By the time evening rolls around, you're barely able to stand. Your legs feel like they've been dragging you through thick mud. Your hands are aching, and your back is stiff from hours of bending and plowing. But there's no time to rest. You still have to tend to the animals. You still have to secure the barn, gather firewood, and prepare for another day of the same work tomorrow. You can't remember the last time you felt truly rested. The days are long, and the work never ends. The cycle continues, one day bleeding into the next, with no relief in sight. As you settle into your bed of straw once again, your body aching and your mind racing with worries about tomorrow, you realize there is no escape. This is your life. The work never stops, and the cycle of survival keeps spinning, dragging you through it. The night stretches on in its usual quiet, but sleep never comes easy. The weariness from the day's toil lingers in every fiber of your being, but the bed of straw does little to ease the ache in your body. Every part of you feels as though it's been pushed to its limit, and yet the cycle continues. The earth will still need tending tomorrow. The animals will still need care. The Lord will still demand his taxes. The weight of these unrelenting duties presses on you even in your sleep. Rest, in this world, is a luxury few can afford. You wake to the sound of birdsong, but even that is an unwelcome interruption. The dawn creeps through the cracks in the walls, but instead of bringing a sense of peace, it serves only as a reminder that another day of toil is beginning. Your eyes flutter open, and the aches of your body pull you back into reality. You stretch, your back protesting, but there's no time to focus on the discomfort. Your family depends on you. The animals depend on you. The land depends on you. The cold still clings to the air as you step out of your bed, the chill biting into your skin like an uninvited guest. It stings, but you don't have the time to let it bother you. You have work to do. The animals must be fed first, and they won't wait for you to find warmth. The animals need food and care just as they did yesterday, just as they will tomorrow. You feed the chickens, milk the cows, and check the goats. The barn is cold, and the smell of manure is thick in the air, but it's a comforting familiarity. You've been here before. You've done this thousands of times. You know what to do, even if your body protests with every movement. Once the animals are taken care of, the next priority is the fields. The land calls to you again, demanding your attention. The plow waits for you just as it has every morning, heavy and unyielding. You know the soil is stubborn today. It always seems that way after a night of frost or rain, and yet there's no room to complain. The weather has its own agenda. The soil doesn't care about your aches. The land doesn't care if you're tired, sore, or struggling. It needs to be worked, and that's all that matters. The work in the fields is grueling and slow, just as it always is. The plow digs into the soil, scraping against the earth with a dull resistance, but you push forward. The weeds must be pulled. The soil must be prepared for the coming harvest, but nothing comes easily. Each step in the field feels as though it takes more effort than the last. Your back aches, your legs are stiff, and your arms feel like lead. You can barely lift the plow anymore, but it's all you have. You pull it forward, and with each step, the weight of the land presses down on you. As you spend hours in the fields, you realize something troubling. The crops are already showing signs of stagnation. The rain hasn't been enough. The soil is too dry. You can feel the earth under your feet, hard and cracked, as though it's giving up on you. You can see the weeds creeping in, suffocating the seeds you've planted. The pests are starting to invade, munching on what little is left. The feeling of helplessness gnaws at you. You've worked hard to plant, to protect, and yet the earth feels indifferent. You wonder if it was ever worth it. You try to push the doubts aside. Hope is a dangerous thing in this world, and it's the only thing that keeps you going. You hold on to that thread of hope, even though you know that the earth and weather might rip it away at any moment. Still, you carry on, plowing the soil, planting seeds, and praying that the coming season will yield something, anything, to get you through the long months ahead. The work must continue, even if the outcome feels uncertain. By midday, the sun's heat has become unbearable. The sweat drips from your brow, stinging your eyes, but you keep pushing forward. The fields are still vast and open, the land stretching for what feels like miles. You've worked this land for years, and yet it never seems to get any easier. Every year feels like the first, like you're starting from scratch, like you have to prove yourself all over again. The sun beats down on your body, pushing you to the edge of exhaustion, but you don't stop. You can't. You think about stopping, taking a break, but you know that if you do, it will only make the work harder. You think about the hunger gnawing at your stomach, but you can't think about food. You think about the winter ahead and how uncertain it feels, but you push those thoughts aside too. You have no control over the future, only control over your work. The land is all you have. You try to keep moving, to focus on the tasks at hand, but the weight of everything begins to settle on you. Every task feels heavier than the last. The mental fatigue becomes overwhelming. You try to push through, to ignore the worry, but it eats at you constantly. The land, the animals, the future, none of it is certain, and all of it depends on your ability to continue. By evening, you feel as though you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders for days. You gather the last of the firewood, secure the animals for the night, and head back to your hut, feeling every step like a mountain to climb. The darkness of night settles over the village, and you realize there is no escaping it. The work is never done. The burden is never lifted. As you settle into your bed of straw, your muscles scream in protest. But even as you lie down, there's no peace. Your body might be resting, but your mind never fully shuts off. You know tomorrow will be the same. You'll get up, feed the animals, tend to the fields, and repeat the process again. There's no relief. There's no sense of accomplishment. You're caught in a cycle that never breaks, a never-ending loop of survival. The only thing that changes is the year, the seasons, the weather, and the conditions outside. The dawn breaks again, and with it comes the familiar aching in your body. It's the same as it's been for years, the same tiredness in your bones, the same stiffness in your joints, the same weight in your chest. You open your eyes, but there is no relief. The cold stone floor of your hut greets you once more, and you know the day ahead will be no different than the one before. You know there's no way to escape it. There's no way to stop. The cycle of work and survival never ends. As you stand up from your straw bed, your muscles groan under the weight of another day of labor. The cold bites at your skin, and the morning air feels as though it's trying to suck the warmth out of you. But you have no choice. The animals are waiting for you, just like every morning before. Their hunger is louder than yours. Their need for care is more urgent than yours. You shuffle toward the barn, already feeling the exhaustion settling in, though the day has only just begun. You know the routine by heart. The feeding, the watering, the cleaning. Each movement is automatic now, each task a muscle memory that you've built over years of labor. The smell of manure and wet straw fills your nostrils as you move through the barn, but it's a familiar smell. There's comfort in the routine, even if it's not a comforting life. The chickens cluck as they await their feed. The cows low softly, their breath visible in the cold morning air. The goats bleat, restless, as they wait to be tended to. It's a grind. The same sounds, the same motions. Day after day, the hunger gnaws at you again. But there's no time to focus on it. Your hands are rough and tired, your legs feel like they're made of lead, but the work has to be done. If you don't feed the animals, if you don't clean the pens, if you don't tend to them, you risk losing your livelihood. Once the animals are fed and tended to, it's time to face the fields. You head out with the same tools as yesterday, the same worn plow, the same old hoe and the same tired body. The fields stretch before you, endless and demanding, and you know the work is going to be just as grueling as before. Every step in the field feels like a mountain. The plow is heavy, the soil resistant, and the sun already seems to beat down on you relentlessly. It's still early, but you can already feel the heat beginning to suffocate you. The weeds are growing faster than you can pull them, the crops aren't thriving as they should, and the earth seems reluctant to give up its harvest. Every year it's the same, and yet each time it feels like you're starting all over again. You can feel the exhaustion in your body. Your muscles are tired, your hands sore from hours of gripping the plow. But you know there's no choice. You can't stop. You can't rest. If you don't work the land, if you don't plant and tend to the crops, there will be no food for your family. The hours stretch on, and your body feels like it's being torn apart by the endless labor. The heat from the sun is suffocating. Your clothes stick to your back with sweat, and the dry earth seems to suck every bit of energy out of you. But you push forward. You can't afford to stop. The weeds must be pulled, the crops must be planted, and the earth must be worked. There is no option but to keep going. As the day wears on, the sun climbs higher, its rays beating down on you with unrelenting force. The sweat drips from your face, stinging your eyes, but there's no time to wipe it away. The field seems to go on forever. Your legs ache from walking the same rows. Your hands are raw from gripping the tools, and your body feels like it's slowly breaking down under the strain. But you can't afford to show weakness. You can't afford to stop. The hours slip by, and before you know it, the afternoon arrives. The heat is nearly unbearable, but there's still work to be done. You can feel your stomach growling again, but there's no time to sit down for a real meal. You might get a piece of bread or some dried meat, if you're lucky, but it's never enough. It never fills the hunger completely. You eat, but it doesn't ease the constant ache in your stomach. The physical strain continues to grow, and your mental strength begins to wane. The tasks in the field seem never-ending. The weeds keep growing, the pests keep coming, and the weather feels like it's working against you. No matter how hard you work, there is no guarantee that the land will give you what you need. The uncertainty gnaws at you, and it wears you down. Every hour, every task, every moment feels like an uphill battle. As the day begins to wind down and the sun starts to set, you feel as though you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. The day is not over, though. There are still animals to be cared for, fences to be checked, and tools to be put away. The day never ends, and neither does the work. You trudge back to your hut, your body screaming for rest, but your mind keeps racing. What will tomorrow bring? Will the crops survive? Will the Lord demand more than you can give? Will your family have enough food to make it through the year? These thoughts swirl around in your mind, but there is no answer. The future is just as uncertain as the present. When you finally settle into your bed at night, your body aching and your mind restless, you know that tomorrow will be more of the same. The same exhausting labor, the same endless cycle of work and survival. But in this life, there is no room for rest. There is only the land, the animals, and the unforgiving reality that never lets go. In the medieval world, Education for a peasant is almost non-existent. The concept of formal schooling is reserved for the children of nobles and clergy, those who have the wealth and leisure to afford such luxuries. For you, education is about survival and learning how to work the land, tend to the animals, and navigate the difficulties of your day-to-day life. Your literacy, if you can call it that, is likely limited to being able to recognize simple symbols, or perhaps make your mark on a document. Reading and writing are far beyond your reach. The ability to read is a skill that's almost entirely reserved for those within the church or noble class. Monks and priests are the only ones who can read the Bible or keep hidden records. If you as a peasant need to sign something, say a contract or a record of work, it's often with an X or a symbol. Literacy is simply not necessary for the life you live. Instead, you learn everything through experience. You watch your parents, your neighbors, and the older members of your village. The education you receive is practical and hands-on. You learn how to plant seeds, harvest crops, milk cows, and repair the fences and tools. Your knowledge comes from the work you do, passed down to you through the generations. There's no formal teacher, only the land, the animals, and the needs of the family. Religion is a different matter. The church is the one place where education does take place, but it's religious in nature. You may learn the prayers and basic Christian doctrines, though much of this knowledge comes through repetition, not deep understanding. The priest reads from the Bible, and you, the peasant, listen. Sometimes the priest may teach you how to say the prayers or offer advice on life, but that's where the depth of your education ends. The idea of mathematics is probably limited to counting heads in the family, measuring how much grain you have in your store, and perhaps understanding basic trade transactions at the market. Arithmetic, in the academic sense, is a luxury you don't have time to learn. If you need to know something about numbers, you learn it from experience, like how to keep track of goods, how many bushels of grain you've harvested, or how much to charge at the market for a piece of cloth or an animal. While the clergy might offer some form of education, it is primarily focused on preparing you to be a good Christian, an obedient, hard-working servant of God. Books are rare and expensive, so the majority of knowledge is oral, passed down through the generations. Folk wisdom, learned through trial and error, is more valuable to you than any textbook. In the medieval world, the concept of a social life is tied to the land and the community. As a peasant, your existence is centered around survival, work, and family. The social connections you have are shaped by your need for cooperation and mutual support. There's little room for leisure, but there's still a vital need for the bonds that hold the village together. Most of your interaction happens within the small community where you live. Village life is simple and structured, built on the necessity of working together for the good of everyone. A typical village consists of a few dozen peasants, all working the same land and subject to the same rules. Everyone knows each other's struggles, their joys and their hardships. Your life is intertwined with theirs because, in reality, you all depend on one another. You rarely leave the village, let alone travel far. The idea of travel is a distant one for you. If you do leave, it's often to visit another village or for something like a market day or a religious festival. Your social connections are local. You'll interact with the same handful of people day in and day out. Socializing doesn't come easily. Your days are consumed by back-breaking labor, tending animals, plowing fields, or fixing fences. But on rare occasions, when the harvest is over or a feast day arrives, there are moments where the community comes together. These are the moments where you can share a meal and perhaps even a laugh. But these moments are few and far between. The work of survival is always lurking. Religious gatherings are one of the few breaks in your otherwise isolated life. The church is where your social connections are most often found. The priest may not be the most accessible figure in your life, but he's central to the community. Most important events, from births to marriages to deaths, are marked by the presence of the priest. He may not offer much in the way of worldly knowledge, but he provides the spiritual foundation for everything that happens in your world. On feast days and holy days, the village might come together to celebrate in the church or around the fire. But these moments don't last long. There's too much to do, too many responsibilities to handle, and rest is a luxury. A social life, in the modern sense, doesn't really exist for you. But even amidst the grind of daily existence, your community can be a source of support. When disaster strikes, when a crop fails, or an animal falls sick, your neighbors will pitch in to help. The support isn't just for convenience. It's a necessity. Without each other, survival would be nearly impossible. Cooperation is the key to making it through. In the world of a medieval peasant, love is not something you find in the poetry of distant lands or in the pages of romantic tales. It's not a fairy tale that sweeps you off your feet, but a practical bond rooted in the reality of survival. For most peasants, love is a concept that exists not in grand gestures or long courtships, but in the shared labor and struggle of everyday life. It's tied to survival, duty, and necessity, far more than to affection or passion. By the time you reach the age of early adulthood, your marriage is often something that's arranged by your parents, or at the very least heavily influenced by the circumstances of your community and your family's needs. In many ways, love in medieval times, for peasants, is intertwined with the idea of practicality and security. There is little opportunity for a young peasant to choose their partner based on personal preference or romantic attraction. In fact, the majority of people marry because it is a necessity, not just for procreation, but for economic survival. The primary reason to marry is to ensure cooperation in work and to help maintain the family unit. Marriage is about ensuring that there is someone to help you with the demanding labor of farm life. A young couple may marry because they both have labor to offer, and together they can better survive the daily grind. With both parties working, there's more manpower to work the fields, care for the animals, and raise children. In a world where survival is never guaranteed, these practical aspects of marriage take precedence. Though passion and affection may grow over time, love is something that develops more slowly in these marriages, forged through the shared hardships and intimate collaboration required to survive. The bond that forms is one of deep respect and mutual reliance, rather than the passionate kind of love we imagine today. However, even in the absence of romantic love, many peasant marriages foster a different, often stronger form of connection, one built on shared hardship and enduring strength. Once the initial practical steps are taken, such as agreeing on a union, the next phase involves religious rituals. The local priest will marry you in a small church ceremony, which might include prayers and blessings, but there's little fanfare. The ceremony is a religious and legal matter, often just a formality to legitimize the union and ensure that the couple has God's blessing in their endeavors. The local priest may offer a few words of wisdom or advice, but the real bonding happens outside the walls of the church, in the fields, in the home, and in the shared work of everyday life. The dowry system is also an essential part of this process. The bride's family may provide a small sum of money, animals, or land to the groom's family. These arrangements, though seemingly transactional, also reflect the family's ability to contribute to the agricultural labor and survival of the household. The concept of romantic love is not so important as ensuring that both families are equally invested in the relationship for mutual benefit. In terms of intimacy, it is expected that once married, the couple will start having children relatively soon. Children are essential for the continuation of the family unit, and the more children you have, the more hands there are to help with the labor. However, these pregnancies and childbirths come with a great deal of risk, as the absence of modern medical care means that childbirth is dangerous, and many women did not survive the process. Still, the desire to have children was strong, especially in a time when your offspring could serve as the backbone of your labor force. In some instances, couples might try to delay marriage in the hopes of securing a bit of individual independence before they settle into the hard work of raising a family. However, the pressure from both your family and the community to marry early is undeniable. As a young peasant, your primary focus is survival, and that means settling down as soon as possible to ensure that your life is as stable as it can be, given the harshness of the world around you. The concept of affection, or even courtship as we know it today, is far from the norm. There is no opportunity for the extended romantic exchanges that we would expect in modern relationships. The time for dating or prolonged courtship is simply unavailable. The day-to-day survival in a medieval peasant's life leaves little room for romantic gestures or personal connections. Instead, your love life is about endurance, about building a partnership that ensures survival. Love isn't about big declarations or surprise gifts, but about creating a life together that can withstand the daily struggles and provide for the family. Though the idea of romantic love might be a distant one for you, there are moments of tenderness in relationships, like the shared smiles when you both get the harvest in, or the quiet contentment in the evenings after the children are asleep, when you both sit by the fire exhausted but together. These moments, though far fewer than we would like, are still the heart of any peasant's love life. They are the simple joys born from the resilience required to make it through life. In the harsh, unrelenting world of a medieval peasant, medicine is nothing more than a distant fantasy. The idea of modern healthcare, doctors and advanced treatments doesn't even begin to enter the picture. Your survival depends more on luck, herbs, and the community than it does on any sort of scientific or medical understanding. This is a world where sickness is often treated as a curse or divine punishment, and injuries can easily lead to death due to lack of proper care. For the majority of peasants, if someone in the household falls ill, there's no one to turn to except for the local healer, who might be a wise woman, an elder, or occasionally a traveling herbalist. These individuals have limited knowledge, often passed down through generations. Herbs like sage, chamomile, or willow bark are used to treat simple ailments, headaches, stomach problems, or mild fevers. But when it comes to anything serious, the knowledge available is shockingly sparse. If you suffer from a fever, you may be treated with herbal infusions or hot compresses, hoping to sweat out the illness, but there's no real understanding of the underlying causes. Germs, bacteria, and viruses remain completely unknown. The medieval mind attributes many illnesses to supernatural forces, like divine punishment for sin, or the influence of evil spirits. In some villages, you might even be taken to a priest to pray for healing, as religion is seen as having greater power than anything earthly, including medicine. The community, however, provides a form of care in itself. In a close-knit village, when someone falls ill, the whole community often rallies together. Neighbors might pitch in to help with the daily tasks, bring food to the sick, or keep an eye on the children while the primary caregiver focuses on the sick person. But the village healer, usually someone with rudimentary knowledge of herbal remedies, is your only real recourse. For broken bones or open wounds, there's even less hope. There's no sterilization process. Wounds are cleaned, if at all, with water or a splash of wine, if you're lucky. The idea of preventing infection through hygiene or using antiseptic is completely foreign. If the wound becomes infected, and given the lack of cleanliness in the medieval world, that's often the end. Amputations, often done out of necessity when a limb becomes gangrenous or infected, are performed with little to no pain relief. The procedure itself is crude, and the risk of death from blood loss or infection is nearly inevitable. The medieval peasant, in many cases, has no choice but to endure. The real miracle in these situations is simply surviving. The lucky ones might make it through, but for many, even something as seemingly minor as a small cut could lead to sepsis or worse. When it comes to childbirth, the risks are no less dire. Many mothers die during or after labor from hemorrhages, infections, or childbed fever, and the same goes for babies. Childbirth is dangerous, and without modern medical care, the odds are stacked against women in the village. Midwives, usually experienced older women, are the primary caregivers during labor, but even they have only basic knowledge of the process. If things go wrong, there's little to be done. Sometimes, women who've experienced multiple births in their lives become accustomed to the process and might have a higher chance of surviving, but for the most part, childbirth is a gamble. The fear of illness and death from disease is always hovering, especially during plague seasons. During outbreaks of plague, like the Black Death, your world is turned upside down. Entire villages can be wiped out within weeks, and there is no understanding of how the disease spreads. Quarantines and isolation are the only methods used to try to prevent the disease from spreading. But more often than not, the sickness spreads faster than anyone can react. Pestilence is seen as an act of God or a consequence of sin, and you're left with little to no options for recovery. Even something as simple as a cold or the flu could result in death, as there are no remedies to boost the immune system or fight off infections. Most illnesses simply have to run their course, and if the body is weak, if there's no food, if the environment is harsh, the result is often death. Coughing, fever, and muscle aches are symptoms, and you may try to cure them with herbs or rest, but there's no guarantee that you'll survive the sickness. This lack of medicine breeds a deep fear in every peasant, especially as you get older. You know that a serious illness could mean death, and there's little you can do about it. You don't know if the fever that comes on one night will pass, or if it's the beginning of something worse. There are no hospitals or doctors to go to, no real options for help, and the resources available to you are limited at best. You can pray for healing, but you can't rely on that alone. Your life is fragile, and every injury or illness is a reminder of just how easily things can slip out of your control. In the medieval peasant's world, the family unit is the bedrock upon which survival is built. The world you live in is unforgiving, and the social pressures to work, to produce, and to keep the family alive are constant. There's no room for personal desires or even dreams. The community and familial structures are what tie you to this life, and these connections are what make it bearable, though never easy. The pressure to provide for your family weighs heavily on you. You know that if the crops fail, or the harvest doesn't come in, your family might go hungry. The lack of food and the fear of starving loom over you every year, so the family must work together as a unit to gather what you can. There is little room for personal ambitions. Instead, your ambitions are aligned with keeping the family alive and, if possible, ensuring a better future for the next generation. Parents, especially fathers, are focused on raising children who will one day take over the responsibility of the land, ensuring that the cycle of work, survival, and inheritance continues. The family is the primary source of support in the medieval world. In a village of peasants, where every hand is needed, there's no such thing as a truly individual life. From a very young age, you are trained to help with the work. Your parents teach you the skills needed to survive, often starting when you are just a child. It is expected that you, along with your siblings, will help with everything from tending animals to collecting firewood to working the land. Your father might take you out into the fields to teach you how to plow, and your mother will show you how to milk cows, churn butter, or weave wool. Work is your education, and survival depends on how well you can perform those duties. If you are not contributing, it directly affects the family's survival, and that's a social responsibility you cannot escape. The Lord, though distant, plays a significant role in your life. While peasants rarely interact with their lords, their presence looms large in everyday life. The Lord's tax demands are a constant source of stress. Your survival depends on the success of your crops and livestock, and yet, much of what you grow and raise will be given to the Lord. Taxes might take up to half of your harvest. You must work for yourself, for your family, and also for the Lord's benefit, with no benefit in return except for the right to stay on the land you tend. This arrangement might seem unfair, but there's little you can do. The Lord's word is final, and to defy him is to risk losing your livelihood, or worse. If your taxes aren't paid, the Lord might take your land, your animals, or force you into servitude. These are the risks you face every year. The community solidarity in the medieval village is what keeps you going. If a neighbor's barn burns down, you are expected to pitch in and help rebuild. If someone is sick, the village will come together to bring food, take care of chores, and share what little they have. It's not out of generosity alone, but out of necessity. If the community fails to come together, if any member is allowed to fall, the whole system risks collapse. The bonds that hold people together in the village are not based on deep emotional connections or friendships, but on shared survival. Everyone needs to contribute, and no one can afford to fail. However, these bonds also mean that you are constantly under the scrutiny of your community. People talk. If your family is struggling, the rest of the village will know. If your harvest is poor or your animals are sick, it's a social embarrassment. There is a constant pressure to keep up appearances, to show that your family is strong, hardworking, and productive. Failure is not just a personal issue, it becomes a public one. People will whisper about your poor harvest, or the fact that your children are underfed. The shame of being seen as a failure can weigh heavily, especially when your worth is measured by how much you contribute to the community. When times are tough, the village comes together, not just for the work, but for the support of one another. In times of famine or crop failure, when the cold sets in too early, or the rain fails to fall, everyone in the village feels the strain. There are no quick fixes, no government help. It is up to the community to help each other through. Bartering becomes common in these desperate times. You might trade a few eggs for a loaf of bread, or give some of your extra wool to a neighbor in exchange for help fixing a fence. The relationships within the community often blur between practical cooperation and personal bonds. You might not be able to afford a formal social life, but you do have moments of connection. Sharing a meal, though simple and often scarce, allows you to break the tension of daily work. Gatherings at the church or during the rare moments of feast days provide a small break in the monotony. There is comfort in knowing that, for all the hardships, you are not alone. Others share your struggles and can offer help when you need it most. As a family, you often rely on each other for emotional support as well as for survival. The pressure to keep going, to stay productive, and to avoid failure is a constant source of stress. If you fall ill, your spouse and children must take on extra work to keep the household running. This mutual reliance forms a strong emotional bond over time, despite the fact that there's little room for romantic love or emotional indulgence. Mutual respect is the foundation of the relationship. It's a world built on necessity. Grief is a constant, unavoidable companion in the life of a medieval peasant. Whether it comes from the death of a loved one, the loss of a harvest, or the endless uncertainty about the future, the emotional toll on your heart and mind is undeniable. The brutal realities of life, the hard work, and the scarcity of resources mean that death is always lurking in the background, ready to strike at any moment. Whether it's an illness that claims the life of a child, or the accident that takes away a family member, the loss is felt deeply. Yet, despite the pain, there's little time to grieve. When someone in the family dies, it is devastating. You might bury them quickly, with only a brief ceremony, but the emotional wound stays with you. There is no space to properly mourn. The loss weighs on your heart, but the world doesn't stop for you. The chores don't stop. The animals still need to be tended to. The crops still need to be harvested. The work never stops, and neither does the pressure to survive. It's in these moments, though, that the resilience of a peasant becomes evident. Despite the grief, despite the heartache, you continue. You get up every day knowing that survival depends on your actions, your hands, your body. You work through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the sorrow. There's strength in this, but it's a strength born of necessity, not choice. The family, the community, and even the land demand it. You don't have the luxury of breaking down. The cycle of life and death continues, and the only choice you have is to endure. Resilience is the backbone of the peasant's existence. It's what keeps you going when everything feels like it's falling apart. The harshness of the world, the constant toil, and the crushing uncertainty of the future make resilience a necessity. It's not a matter of pride or personal glory, it's about survival. And survival requires grit. Through each tragedy, each loss, you continue. You rely on your family, your community, and your own sheer will to keep going. The emotional toll of losing someone you love is enormous, but it's endured in silence. The mental strain of this is often not acknowledged, but it's there, underlying every action, every decision. The weight of grief sits heavy in your chest, but you carry it with you day after day. The bond between family members in the face of grief is also a testament to the emotional strength you possess. In a life filled with hardship, your family becomes your anchor. The shared experiences, the shared burdens, create a deep emotional connection that is unspoken but understood. You may not have the luxury of sitting down and talking about your feelings, but you express love through action. You show up for each other when it matters most. You work together, you support each other, and you endure together. That is the essence of peasant love, the love of resilience, of survival, and of community. There's no escape from the mental toll that a life like this takes. The emotional strain wears down on you slowly, over years of hard labor and loss. The suffering of the body takes its toll on the spirit as well. But the strength that comes from this suffering is something you learn to rely on. Over time, you adapt to the constant pressures of life. Your emotions, like your body, grow calloused, not out of indifference, but out of the necessity to keep moving forward. The pain may never go away, but you learn to work through it, to live through it. In the unforgiving world of a medieval peasant, the emotional toll of daily survival is immense. The work, the worry, and the constant fear of failure take their toll on your mental and emotional well-being. Your life is a never-ending cycle of hard labor, with little time to reflect or rest, and the physical exhaustion compounds the emotional strain. As you struggle to survive, you are constantly aware of the precariousness of your situation. Any misstep, any bad weather, or any illness could lead to disaster. Fear is a constant companion. You live with the constant uncertainty that comes with being at the mercy of the land, the seasons, and the Lord. Will the crops come in? Will the taxes be too high? Will there be enough food for your family to make it through the winter? These are the questions you ask yourself every day, and they gnaw at you even when you sleep. The constant worry that the next harvest might fail, or that an illness might strike your family, keeps you awake at night. In a world where survival is always in question, there's little room for peace of mind. Loneliness can also be a factor. Even though you're surrounded by people, the work is so demanding that it leaves little room for personal connection. Your relationships with your fellow villagers are defined by necessity and shared labor, not by friendship or affection. While you might have a strong sense of community, there is a deep emotional isolation that comes with the endless toil. You may go for weeks without speaking to someone outside of your immediate family, and the emotional bonds you have are formed in the trenches of daily life, not through leisure or social interaction. As a peasant, you are constantly aware of your place in the world. You are not a free person in the modern sense. Your life is controlled by the land, by your labor, and by the hierarchical structure that exists around you. The pressure to conform to social norms, to meet the expectations of your community and your family, weighs heavily on your shoulders. There is little room for individuality or personal ambition. You are part of a system that demands your obedience and your work. And yet, despite this emotional strain, there is a strange kind of resilience that grows out of the harshness. Endurance becomes a kind of emotional survival skill. You learn to adapt to the constant pressure, to the exhaustion, to the lack of rest. You learn to accept that tomorrow will likely bring the same challenges as today. The acceptance of the harsh realities of life becomes a key part of your mental strength. There is comfort in routine, even if that routine is one of hard labor and constant concern. You know what's expected of you, and you meet those expectations because failure is not an option. The family unit becomes the emotional anchor in a world that offers few emotional comforts. When your spouse and children help you with the work, there's a deep sense of satisfaction in knowing that you're not facing the challenges alone. The simple act of working together can provide a sense of emotional connection. But even in the best of times, there's still that underlying emotional strain. No matter how hard you work, there's always the constant possibility that something will go wrong. If a storm hits, or if there's a poor harvest, it's not just the physical labor you must face. It's the emotional toll of seeing your hard work go to waste. The sacrifice you've made, the sweat and effort poured into your survival, can feel like it amounts to nothing if disaster strikes. In times of grief, such as when a family member dies, the emotional toll can be overwhelming. Death is never far away in a peasant's life. Children are particularly vulnerable, and the loss of a child to illness, accidents, or poor living conditions is tragically common. Even when a loved one survives infancy, the death of a child or a spouse leaves a deep emotional wound. The emotional strain of dealing with loss in an environment where you are already stretched thin can seem insurmountable. The absence of mourning rituals, as we know them today, compounds this. While there might be a church service or a quiet funeral for the deceased, the focus is not on personal grief. There's little time to grieve. There is still work to be done. The body may be buried quickly, with little ceremony, and the family must move on, even while the emotional pain of losing someone remains. The grief is internalized, and the community moves forward because it has no choice. The lack of emotional expression is both a survival mechanism and a tragic consequence of living in such a hard world. But despite the loss, despite the emotional toll, the love between family members remains central. The bond between you and your family is what keeps you going. When the days are darkest, when the weather is bleak, and when the crops fail, it's the family that keeps you grounded. Even when you're physically exhausted and mentally worn down, the knowledge that your family depends on you can push you to keep moving. In a medieval peasant's life, the family is not just a social unit, it is the core of existence, a source of emotional resilience, that helps you weather the trials of life. Your family is everything. The bonds that tie you to them are built on shared labor, shared struggle, and shared survival. Love in the modern sense may not be something you express openly, but the love that exists within your family is tangible. It's expressed in the hours of labor spent together, in the quiet moments of understanding when words are unnecessary, and in the mutual reliance that exists because everyone's survival depends on it. When a loved one falls ill, the family rallies together. The absence of medicine and proper health care means that the primary means of caring for a sick family member is through the combined efforts of those around them. The family members step in to take over chores, watch over the sick, and manage the household while the patient rests. The emotional weight of caring for an ill family member is immense. It's not just the physical burden of nursing someone back to health, it's the constant fear of losing them. If a child becomes ill, it is a heartbreaking experience, and the community can only provide limited support. The emotional toll of seeing a loved one suffer, knowing there is little to nothing you can do to help them, is a weight that many peasant families carry quietly. But this emotional connection within the family is also what gives you the strength to keep going. Each member of the family understands their role, even when it's difficult, even when they're tired, or when grief has started to gnaw at them. The eldest child may take on more responsibility when a parent falls ill, and the younger siblings will pitch in when work in the fields is required. The strength of the family is rooted in cohesion, in the quiet knowledge that no matter how hard the work gets, no matter how tired you are never truly alone. Even when death strikes, the family finds ways to endure. When a family member dies, whether it's a child lost in infancy, a spouse lost in childbirth, or an elderly relative, the family does not fall apart. Yes, there is grief, but there is also resilience. The family knows that the cycle of life must continue. The work must go on. You may bury the dead quickly, but the memory of that loved one lives on in the stories passed down from one generation to the next. The spirit of the family is built on this endurance, on the ability to keep going, to survive despite the pain. However, it's not all sacrifice and grief. There are moments of joy, rare though they may be, that make the struggle worth it. The simple act of gathering around the fire, even with the day's weariness still pressing against your bones, can provide warmth that transcends the physical. The shared laughter when a joke is told, the quiet moments of affection between spouses as they take a break from their chores. These moments are like brief oases in the desert of hard work. Celebrations might happen on religious holidays, on the rare market days when there's a bit of extra food, or when a harvest finally comes through. These brief moments of shared happiness and thankfulness are fleeting, but they serve as vital reminders of why you continue the fight for survival. Yet, the struggle is always there, and it shapes your entire outlook. You are always looking ahead to what needs to be done. There's no such thing as long-term plans. In your world, the immediate future is your focus. Getting through the day, making it to the next harvest, keeping the animals healthy, ensuring there's enough food to last through the coming months. There's no room for dreaming, for ambition. Survival is the only goal. The lack of control over your circumstances makes this way of life so difficult. Every day is a gamble, especially when it comes to the weather. The land could be productive, or it could be barren. The animals could thrive, or they could get sick. The Lord's taxes could be too high, or they might be slightly more forgiving. There's a constant uncertainty that hangs over your life. The lack of agency, the inability to change your circumstances, is one of the hardest parts of being a medieval peasant. But in this environment of constant work, the family unit is the one thing that remains stable. The connections you have with those who share your home, the emotional bonds that grow out of shared suffering, are your foundation. Love may not always come in the form we recognize today, but it's no less important. The bond between family members is forged through shared struggle, through the sacrifices made for one another, and through the unspoken understanding that together you can endure whatever comes. In the medieval peasant's world, shared labor is not just a necessity, it's a lifeline. The very nature of a peasant's existence, constant, grueling work, means that the family and the community are the backbone of survival. Every task, every responsibility is interconnected, and no one can afford to work in isolation. The burden of physical labor is shared across the family, and as such, the bonds of resilience are formed not just from emotional connection, but from a practical interdependence. From the moment you rise in the morning to the moment you collapse into bed at night, your labor is a shared experience. The family works together to maintain the household and the land. This might mean gathering firewood, tending to the animals, or working in the fields. Children, while not able to contribute as much as adults, are still a part of the daily cycle. By the time they are of a certain age, they are expected to learn the skills of survival, whether that's helping with the animals, cleaning, or even learning the trade of their parents. The daily rhythm of shared labor is a steady rhythm that gives structure to your day, but it is also physically exhausting. It requires everyone's participation, and when someone is missing, whether through illness, injury, or death, the loss is felt deeply by the whole family. In the event of an injury or sickness, the entire family steps in to cover the lost work. If a parent falls ill, a child might take on more responsibility, and siblings may work together to lighten the load. Sharing the burden is crucial to ensuring survival. The entire family pulls together for the common good, and there is a silent strength that comes from this communal effort. The community also plays a critical role in the shared labor of survival. In small villages, neighbors often work together, whether it's for large projects like harvesting the crops or rebuilding a barn after a storm. There is an unspoken rule that everyone helps each other. The mutual exchange of labor is crucial, as you rely on each other, not only for physical work, but also for emotional support. If one family is struggling, the rest of the community often steps in to offer what they can, whether that's by providing food, labor, or assistance with repairs. It's a system of interdependence that is built on survival, but also on the strength of relationships that form through shared hardship. This mutual cooperation becomes even more vital during difficult times. For instance, in years of poor harvests or drought, families that rely on each other for food may find themselves in grave danger. When crops fail, or when the weather is harsh, communities often come together in a collective effort to ensure that everyone has enough to survive. This can mean sharing the meager resources that you've managed to gather, or working together to replant or rebuild after a flood or fire. Even though the bonds between families are practical, they are not without their emotional connections. The act of shared labor strengthens these emotional bonds, as the hardships of the work forge connections that go beyond the practicalities of daily life. It's in these moments, when you and your family or neighbors are working together, that you form the most intimate connections, not through words, but through the shared experience of enduring hard work together. It's a communal bond that is often unspoken, but deeply felt. Despite the harsh conditions, there are moments of relief that come from this shared work. Working together in the fields or in the barn, you experience a kind of connection that makes the hard work bearable. At times there's laughter as you share stories, and sometimes these moments are more important than the work itself. In these moments, there's a sense of belonging, a sense that you are part of something greater than yourself, something that transcends the mundane and hard labor. This is where the foundation of your social resilience is built. In the medieval world, where survival was a daily struggle, Faith and religion played a central role in the life of a peasant. When you wake up every morning to face the endless work of tending the fields, caring for the animals, and ensuring the survival of your family, hope and comfort often come from something greater than the material world around you. It's not the promise of wealth, health, or even rest that sustains you. It's the belief that there is a higher power watching over you, a divine presence that offers a sense of purpose and meaning in the midst of hardship. The church is not just a building, but a constant presence in your life. It's a place of spiritual nourishment and a communal hub where peasants gather to receive guidance and solace. The priest is an important figure, not just in religious matters, but in the overall community. His role extends beyond that of a spiritual leader. He's often the one to perform marriages, baptisms, and funerals. He may also provide comfort to families in times of grief, sickness, or uncertainty. The church serves as a unifying force in the village, especially during times of crisis. If a plague strikes, or a bad harvest threatens the livelihood of the entire community, the village often turns to the church for answers. The belief that God's will is at work in the world, and that suffering is part of a greater plan, provides some comfort in the face of calamity. The idea that your hardship is not meaningless, that it serves a higher purpose, can be a balm for your soul. But it is also a source of frustration when you feel the weight of suffering without any clear reason or end in sight. Every part of your life as a peasant is steeped in religion. Feast days and holy days are moments when you gather with the community to celebrate and pray. These days, though rare, offer moments of reprieve from the constant grind of work. You come together to give thanks for what little you have, to ask for divine favor, and to participate in the ritualistic ceremonies that mark the Christian calendar. The celebration of Christmas, Easter, and All Saints' Day are not just religious observances, but also community-wide events that allow you a brief moment of connection, peace, and joy. These events are a reminder that there's more to life than just the endless work. Even in the hardest times, there's a spiritual connection that transcends the material struggles of the world. Religion also plays a role in shaping your moral framework. The church's teachings guide your sense of what is right and wrong. The Ten Commandments provide a moral compass, and the concept of sin and redemption is woven into the fabric of daily life. When things go wrong, when a crop fails or an animal dies, it's not uncommon to hear whispers that the hardship is a punishment from God. Perhaps it is because of some sin or failure to live up to the moral expectations set by the church. But there is also hope in forgiveness and the belief that God's grace can cleanse your soul. Through the sacrament of confession, you have the opportunity to repent and seek absolution. Though it may seem like a small ritual, it offers you a moment of relief and hope in an otherwise harsh world. The ritual of confession and the promise of divine forgiveness is an emotional release. It allows you to unburden your soul and prepare for the work that lies ahead. The act of repentance gives you the chance to reflect on your own shortcomings and seek to improve your spiritual life, even though your physical life remains unchanged. However, it's important to remember that faith can also create a heavy burden. When your family is struggling, when the harvest fails, and when illness strikes, the pressure to maintain faith in the face of adversity can be overwhelming. There are moments when you may wonder if your suffering is punishment, or if God has abandoned you. The unanswered prayers, the unresolved struggles, the constant labor, they all wear down your faith. But in the end, the hope that the divine will provide relief keeps you going. Rituals, whether they are tied to religious holidays or to daily practices like prayers before meals or at bedtime, serve to give structure and meaning to an otherwise chaotic and difficult life. These practices may seem like small gestures, but they anchor you in the belief that there is something more to life than just survival. They provide comfort and a sense of continuity in a world that is otherwise constantly shifting beneath you.